and it says the Hangout's live. So what's going on, everybody? This is Ted Busiek. This is a live episode of The Conversation. And I'm here with Jill Ellisa.
Ellisa? Mm-hmm.
Ellisa, I'm sorry. So we were talking before I hit go live, and I threw out like two possible pronunciations of Jill Ellisa, and they were both wrong. So I'm all heads over tails right now. But I'm here with Jill Ellisa, and Jill, how would you describe your political perspective?
I would say I'm definitely a Democrat. I say also kind of jokingly that I'm a bleeding heart liberal. So I'm definitely a Democrat.
Definitely a Democrat, and not a. So you're not a fan of Donald Trump?
Not really. No.
Not really.
No.
So I'm hoping what we can do here is not have a debate. This isn't internet blood sports. This is. I'm hoping what we can do is have a kind of a conversation and figure out. Just see if we can build some bridges. We got hooked up over Twitter. So this is my recollection of how this went down. There was some blue check mark, like Twitter celebrity who gave a tweet, and the tweet was something like, and I'm not looking at it, but from memory it was like, we need to have a conversation, like a national conversation. Oh, I know what it was. It was a My Fellow White People tweet. So it was like, fellow white people, we need to have a conversation about race or something. And I responded, hey, buddy, I'm a white guy. Let's do it. Let's have a conversation about race. Let's go. Let's have a conversation. And the blue checkmark guy had a little back and forth with me where he was basically like, no, A, and then like, B, you're an idiot for taking me seriously when I said that or something. You know, I mean, those weren't his exact words, but that was what I took for it. But Jill, on the other hand, was really game. She was like, okay, sure. Let's talk about this. Let's bridge the divide here and have a conversation. And I was really impressed and kind of touched that she would be willing to do that. So I invited her to come on. Anything you want to add to that narrative, Jill?
And then I'm trying to remember. And then I remember Rachel kind of jumped in there too. And then I thought, I was thinking that all three of us would, talk too, but that's, it's fine if she's not. But anyway, I thought it was, I think I'm trying to remember, was it around, I want to say around the time of the election in Alabama? For some reason, I'm thinking it was having to do with that.
Oh yeah,
because they had a very big there was a very big African American turnout there. I remember, it was very like 98% or something of at least black women came out for Doug Jones, and then another big amount of black men also did. So it was like, okay, it was interesting to see the African American turnout in Alabama.
Right. Good call. Yeah, because I think that was what occasioned the tweet, because it was a similar disparity to what we saw in 2016, where in 2016, whites voted for Trump, and then non-whites voted on a spectrum, but all for, all of the sort of non-white voting demographic blocks voted for Clinton. And some of them were a little closer to 50-50, and then some of them were really skewed, like really severe. Like I think black voters went, like 88% for Clinton or something. And so this was like a similar thing, but just in miniature in Alabama. And I think that was what occasioned it. So ostensibly, I think what kicked this off was a discussion of race, but we can talk about race, or we can talk about anything else that you think is topical or interesting. I guess what I would say to start with is, what is the biggest, let's say, the biggest sticking point for you, or what is the thing that you least understand? That's a better way to phrase it. What's the thing that you least understand about the right-wing side of the spectrum?
I mean, I know Republicans too, and a lot of them are great people. You know what I mean? But it seems like, at least with Trump coming in, it seems like it's ever like the Republican Party has sort of just caved to him. Like it's incredible. Like you know what I mean? Like a lot of conservatives, I respect their views, even though I see things differently, but it's like a lot of conservatives now have just like he's just totally like co-opted, a lot of Republicans. It's interesting to see that, and a lot of the way that he is as a person, I just don't like. I think that's why a lot of women are sort of rising up, I think, with the women's movement and all that, with the Me Too movement and all that, because he, he's like a sexual harasser and, supposedly a sexual assault person, somebody who commits a sexual assault. So it's like, for women, most women know what that's about, has been through that, unfortunately. So it's like, if you're, it's just kind of, that's a big thing, I think, as a woman. And then just the way seems very anti-immigrant. And it's just, America was, was built, with, the only people that are really Americans are the Native Americans. Everybody else came from somewhere else. So, you know what I mean? Imagine if there was somebody like Trump back in the day that was going, oh no, we're going to only let in people from this and this place, but not these and this place. You know what I mean? Like this country wouldn't have, it wouldn't be this America. So it's just just because, he came, I mean, his family came in here back in the day too, chain migration or whatever, just certain terms that are used. It's just kind of offensive, because I mean, everybody's from somewhere else. Like I have on both sides of my family, I've got Russian and German, and like each set came, over. So, you know what I mean? And I'm sure a lot of people can say that about their families.
You mentioned the Native Americans. Do you feel like the Native Americans' lives were greatly improved by the arrival of the Europeans?
Oh, I mean, it seems like we kind of just sort of maligned them and just said, hey, well, it's nice that you're here, but we're taking over. Sorry. I mean, I don't know. That's just the sense that I get. Obviously, I wasn't around then, and I know, somewhat history, but it seems like they're sort of, okay, we're just going to stick you over here on these reservations. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's kind of.
So you think maybe they were better off when this was their continent before we showed up and sort of elbowed them out of the way? Is that accurate?
I don't know. I mean, my God, back then, like, what was it? I mean, there weren't cars, there wasn't technology, there wasn't, you know what I mean? It was a very different world back then. So a lot of things have definitely, hopefully improved and changed. But yeah, I mean, who's to say? You know what I mean? What would have happened if, the Europeans didn't come over here and, set up the colonies and all that? I don't know.
Well, let me ask the question this way: if you had been a Native American, if you had been a Native American at the time, would you have had a favorable attitude toward the European settlers displacing you from your ancestral homeland, or would you have been maybe pretty reticent about the prospect?
Yeah, I mean, probably not. I mean, anybody who comes in and tries to, subjugate or oppress other humans, like, I don't agree with that. So, but that's the way that it goes. You know what I mean? It's like all throughout history.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. I
mm,
mean, I feel the same way that you do, and I thought it was interesting that you would mention the Native Americans because I view them as being I view their plight as being very instructive. I would say to you, and I'd love to hear what you think of this, but I would say to you that the Native Americans could have really benefited from a more Donald Trump-esque immigration policy.
say it again. The Native Americans could have benefited from what?
A much more Donald Trump style immigration policy.
You think? The
Yeah,
Native
absolutely.
Americans? What?
Yeah, for
How's
sure. I
that?
think that,
Wait a minute. How's that?
well, I would say that this whole continent, in fact, both two continents, both North and South America, were dominated by a people, the Native Americans, who um, had certainly had their flaws, but also had really noble and
Oh,
admirable
you're saying
attributes.
if they took this if they took the stance of like let's build a wall or something around the continent, is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I would say basically,
Okay.
that they were displaced. They're as a people on a inhabiting a continent. They were displaced by an invasive, really what you might call an invasive species, by the Europeans coming in, doing things a different way, sort of pushing them aside, outbreeding them, whatever, and um, the fact that they didn't enforce any kind of borders, the fact that they had basically no immigration policy at all, ended up really it ended up ending their legacy. It ended up ending what was their
Hmm.
heritage of a birthright claim to the American continents.
Well,
So,
that's crazy. Like rewrite history here because can you imagine? Like, and then who knows? Maybe the Europeans would have ended up going, who knows where, right? Mexico or something. I don't know. Yeah, if they couldn't have,
well, no,
colonized.
Mexico was filled with Native Americans too.
Right.
There were
True.
Native Americans living from
Hmm.
from Nome, Alaska, all the way down to the to
Yeah.
Patagonia. There were Native
Right.
Americans. There were Native Americans in present day Argentina and present day Northwest Territories.
Hmm.
The whole New World
Hmm.
was already inhabited by a people before we got here, and to
Right.
me, it seems crazy to say, well, that could never ever happen to us, right? What do you
Hmm.
think about that?
But see, this is the thing. Okay, but now that it is the way that now that the United States is the United States, right? It's a melting. See, I grew up in Miami, right? So that's why I think um, I like all nationalities, people from wherever. You know what I mean? Speak English, Spanish, whatever language, right? So it's like now that we're the way the United States is with a melting pot of people from everywhere. You know what I mean? You can't turn it back and go, oh no, now we just want to make it for basically white Anglo-Saxon Protestant again. And that's what I think Trump is trying to do. Like he just basically to me it seems like he's trying to turn us back to like the 50s. It just seems like that, like with a lot of his policies and a lot of what the GOP is trying to do now, it just like rolling back all kinds of rights for just many different groups. So,
And would you say that? So, are you saying that you can't really, you have a sort of a demographic situation, sort of a demographic, not just demographic, but a demographic, socio-political status quo, and you can't just radically change that status quo. Is that what you're saying?
um, status. Well, no, I mean, I just, I don't. I think there has to be some kind of immigration policy, but not where it's banning people from certain countries or building a wall. Like, really, we really want this to be like the Great Wall of China or the what do you call it, the Berlin Wall and all that. Like, no, to me, that's just a symbol of just racism and hatred. Like it doesn't sit right. You know what I mean? It's just, that's not how, I don't think it's right. So, they need to, there has to be, I guess, some kind of, obviously we need to vet people, you know what I mean? But just the way that he is going about it, you know what I mean? It's like he's pissed off a lot of people, a lot of leaders around the world. You know what I mean? They mock him, make fun of him, and then they don't respect him because he doesn't respect them.
Going back just a little bit to the Native American conversation, I found a little. I was just tooling around while you were talking, but I was paying rapt attention to what you were saying, just so you know. But while you were talking, I was tooling around and I found a little comic that kind of illustrates my thoughts on this. Can you see that? I don't know if this is presenting correctly.
Let me see. Okay, let me see if I can make it bigger. It's showing up small on my screen. I can see it, but I can't read it.
Gotcha. I'm gonna try to zoom in. Sorry, okay. This is
If you can zoom in, then for sure I can see. It's like, I guess, a couple of Native Americans and.
Yeah, this is Amateur Hour with Ted Busiek, and.
All right, you got it. Okay. Wait a minute.
There's a couple of little Native Americans, and then they see like what looks like the back of a conquistador.
Right. And one of the Mayflower or something, right? Or one of those ships. Okay, not the Mayflower, but
so yeah, maybe a pilgrim or something. And then one of the Native Americans says, "There's no need to be racist, Soaring Eagle. I'm sure they'll assimilate just fine." This really encapsulates, like, look, we live on a continent that is the former home of a dispossessed people. So we should be very careful not to let the same thing happen to us that happened to the Native Americans. We should be, to me, their story is a clarion call, a warning to be really careful about who you let into your country. What do you think about that?
Oh, so you're so you're saying it in the other way of saying, okay, see, that's interesting, because I don't see it that way. Like, I just see it as it's a melting pot, and it's just like everybody from everywhere, and that's what makes us great. That we have different, ideas and different, just everything, food, music, whatever, from just everywhere. Like, we're the only country, pretty much, that has representatives from everywhere. All over the world. You know what I mean? Like, we're not like Sweden, or I'm trying to think of other countries that, where
Sweden, again, with the dangerous analogy, Sweden might be a really bad analogy for you to be making right now, a really bad example for you to pick.
Okay, maybe not. Well, I know they have a lot of issues right now going on. My friend's from Sweden, so she kind of, tells me a little bit of, like they've have a lot of, I guess, Muslim, immigrants now, and that's getting to be kind of an issue and stuff like that. So maybe it's not, what I mean, the best. That's true. But
do you think do you think that the problems that are being faced by Sweden, which are obviously Sweden's problems are demographic problems, do you think that we might ever face similar problems ourselves, or is that do you think that that's at all a risk for us?
I don't know, because I guess I feel like if you just I don't look at, like I said, I try to just treat everybody equal. Like, I don't go, oh, because this person is this color, or this person speaks this language, or they look different, or whatever. Like, I try to be, accepting. Like, unless somebody gives me a reason not to like them for whatever, then I give everybody the same. Like, I don't judge. I try not to judge people, because what is it? Judge lest ye be judged. Like, I just don't. I try to just give everybody an equal chance. So I'm not I'm not I'm not the one that's going to say, oh yeah, let's, again, build the wall and all that kind of stuff. Like, I I don't think that's right.
You mentioned the wall a couple of times, and we have a commenter in the chat who wants to know. Kaiter asks, quote, "So is wall also an end quote also an example of racism and hatred?" What do you think about other countries around the world? Israel is an obvious example where it seemed like they were having a demographic problem with certain Palestinians just in a certain area, so they built a wall. But obviously China, back in the olden days, built a really big wall to keep out barbarians. Other countries have used walls. Have they always been, is wall building always an exercise in bad faith?
I mean, I guess it depends. Back when China built their wall, I guess, yeah, there was, I'm not exactly even sure, so I don't want to say like exactly why they did, but I'm guessing, yeah, it was to keep invaders out or whatnot. But I don't know. I mean, to me, it just doesn't, it's not, I don't like it. I just don't. I think like I'm a person that wants to build bridges, not walls. You know what I mean? Even the Pope, I think, was saying that. Like, I don't agree. Like, I think that there's other ways of, doing stuff that can, to keep us safe. And then, okay, here, you want to talk about another thing that's going on right now with the guns? Like, that's another huge debate right now, and it's like, these are people that are already American citizens. I think other than the guy Omar Mateen, who shot up the club in Orlando, I think his family, he was from, I want to say, Iran or somewhere. I'm not sure.
He was from Afghanistan.
Was he? Okay. So he was from,
right.
Middle Eastern country. But, I think for the most part, a lot of these, mass murderers, the guy in Vegas, the guy that did this the other day in the school in Florida. And that was basic, like that hit me hard because I grew up like an hour and a half away from that's those kids. So that's like, I grew up in the county below Broward. So, I feel it's horrible. Like, and to me, I just go, why is the NRA like putting a chokehold, on a lot of, and mainly it's Republicans, that get the biggest contributions from the NRA. So I guess basically they're, buying their, whatever, their loyalty. And that's why they're not, as adamant about just common sense gun laws. Like, and that's the thing. It's like, I think they think we want to just say no guns, but it's like, no, just not machine guns, not AR-15s. Like,
right.
Well,
this is a pretty big, I want to be diligent about this conversation here. This is okay. a very big segue, I would say, to go from building walls to,
we're kind of jumping around, right? Okay.
Right. No, we can make this jump if you want, but I want to make sure that we haven't left anything on the table with the wall conversation. Okay. Or would you rather jump to guns and circle back to walls? What do you want to do?
Well, okay. I just want to say, I wasn't quite sure. You had said somebody asked a question, and I didn't quite hear sometimes the audio is not all the way like solid, so I can't hear the whole thing. So I just want to make sure that I answered their question. So can you say it again?
Yeah. Oh, well, I want to make sure my audio is okay too. Guys listening in the chat, if my audio is cutting in and out and I need to adjust my mic, please let me know. don't just let me. It's like if you see like somebody and they've got like a little like booger on their lapel or something, like don't just not say anything.
Right. Or if they have like spinach in their teeth or something, like, thanks.
Right. So the question from the chat was this: look, Israel built a wall to protect one ethnicity. So really, you could say it was, if you want to use the word racist, I don't really like to use that word, but if you want to apply words like that, it was a specifically racist wall, right? They were building a wall to protect one ethnicity, Jewish people, from people of another ethnicity, Palestinians. China built the Great Wall of China to keep out the Mongols. Hadrian the Emperor Hadrian built a wall between Caledonia and Britannia, right, to keep the Picts, what we would call today Scottish people, out of proper, more civilized southern British Isles. Are walls? So the question being asked to you is: are walls always bad?
Okay, I see. I mean, I don't. Okay, well, for Israel, I'm not. I don't like it. Just that's a tough one, because I mean, everybody hates the Jews, basically, right? So they got, in a way, you can kind of understand like why they would, but I don't think it's. It seems like the Palestinians are very oppressed in a way too. So it's kind of like that's not cool either. Like it's, and of course that's been such an issue, right? Like peace in the Middle East, like that's been forever. People trying to, figure that out. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Come on, Jill. Now we've gone from building the wall to sitting on the fence, I would say. With this.
Right. I don't know. I mean, maybe in like, way back in the day, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know each circumstance of those. I just know, okay, the China Wall and Berlin Wall. And then, everybody was all happy when Reagan was saying, tear down that wall, right? So it was like, woo, everybody, East Berlin, West Berlin, whatever, like opened it up. So I don't know. Like, to me, it just doesn't seem like I like I said, building bridges. So back in the day, and when you were mentioning some of the other issues, maybe that was more of a way of, that was the way they protected themselves, because they didn't have AR-15s or, you know what I mean? Like, they didn't have all this like sophisticated weapons and whatnot, bombs and whatever else. So it's like, I guess maybe that was useful at that time. So, but right now, I don't like it.
Okay, and that includes in Israel's case, or did you not want to make a specific statement on Israel?
See, I didn't honestly. I don't know about this wall. Like, is it like, how big is this wall? Like, how long is the wall?
I'm sure the chat will correct me if I get this wrong, but I believe it runs along the border between,
like the West. Is it like the West Bank, or?
I thought it was the Gaza Strip, but it could be. It could be the West Bank.
Or West Bank, Gaza Strip. Okay.
Yeah, I was about to say Gaza Strip, but now you're making me doubt myself. Maybe it is along the West Bank. And again, I'm sure that if I get that wrong, the chat will correct me. But the basics of it, I mean, those are sort of details. The basic concept is: look, you've got two people in close proximity, but they're ethnically and culturally different. Right? Maybe more so in this case culturally than ethnically, because they're both Semitic peoples. But they're people who, for one reason or another, they identify themselves with particular different ethnic groups. And one of those groups has built a wall between themselves and the other group.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think if they really want, I don't know. It's a hard situation because, like I said, everybody, like, that's it. Like, the Jews are just, you know what I mean? Everybody's pissed at the Jews, So I'm Jewish. I was born Jewish. I'm not religious at all, but that's the religion that I was born into. But I'm not practicing. But I think, the Jews are pretty much like, everybody's out for the Jews. So I don't know. Like, it's hard for me to say. They may really need it. I don't think it's good. It's helpful for the peace process, but maybe they just feel like they need it because of security. I don't know. Because these people, a lot of these people want to kill them. I don't know. Like, building the wall between...
Okay, Jill, but then here's what I hear you saying. For Jews, it might be okay. It might be necessary. I think you used the word necessary. For them to build a wall. But for Gentiles, no, they're not allowed to. Doesn't that
Because
seem,
like,
I mean,
okay, the issue that Trump is saying with the Mexicans, mainly the people are coming over because they want to make money and like support, have a family, right? And like, or send money back to their families, stuff like that, and do work that most pretty much Americans don't want to do. You know what I mean? So I grew up in Florida. Like I know about like the migrant workers that come and pick the citrus and all that kind of stuff. And it's like that's backbreaking work. Like in the hot like 90-degree heat. Like not a lot of people can do that. So it's like I respect them for doing that. And it's like I think, and a lot of now that Trump's being so anti Mexicans and immigrants, a lot of the produce farmers are, a lot of their produce is just rotting because they don't have people coming here to help them, harvest the produce. So it's like they're not coming over here to kill us. Like, let's say Israel's dealing with the Palestinians. That's what I'm saying.
okay,
It's different.
that's fair. But what about this? Because what I would say to that, so me as a Trump supporter, here's what I would say to that. I would say, aren't you conflating two different issues? One is the issue of what criteria do we apply to decide who we should bring in and who we should let in and who we shouldn't, right? And you might make a very good case. And in fact, I think you're making a good case. Like, look, there are these people, they're a little bit different from us, racially or culturally or whatever, but they have something to offer and we shouldn't demagogue them. And there might be a good case to make for letting them come in. But the question of the wall isn't really a question of along what lines or on what basis we make that decision. The question of a wall is just a question of having control in the first place, being able to make the decision whatsoever. That's what I would say. What do you think about that?
Wait, making the decision about who comes over and who doesn't?
Yeah, exactly. Because, and let me clarify a little bit. The impression that a lot of us, nutty Trump supporters have is that there really isn't control, that we don't have control right now over our own borders, that the border, especially the southern border, is a really one that really matters, because our border with Canada, although it's larger and less well patrolled, is a border with a country that much more closely mirrors ourselves. The people there are mostly English speaking, or if they aren't English speaking, they're at least mostly white, right? Yes, they're French Canadians, but their culture is much more similar to ours.
Right.
What we're really worried about is this idea that south of us, there's this whole group of peoples that are very different from us, and maybe we could make the case that some should be allowed in or some shouldn't or whatever, but before we can even have that conversation, we need to be able to have control over that, and right now that's an uncontrolled variable.
I don't know. I mean, I just and supposedly they've said that the border crossings have gone down anyway, especially since Trump's been in office, but it's been like a gradual decline anyhow. So, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's, this is the thing, like I said, I give everybody an equal chance. I don't judge people because they're brown or speak a different language or whatever. You know what I mean? If they're just here working hard and respecting the law, like, yeah, I'm not saying, oh yeah, come. I mean, I know there's a lot of drug cartels, but that's a whole other debate. You know what I mean? It's like, if there wasn't a drug issue in the States, people wanting the drugs, so what came first, the cart or the horse, whatever. It's like, so, I don't know. I just think that the majority, at least with like, let's say even the dreamers, you know what I mean? It's like those kids are probably, or people now, I guess they're adults, most of them now, are probably better citizens than a lot of Americans. I mean, they get checked like every couple years.
Right, in that case, because I hear what you're saying, and you know, you're expressing yourself very well, I would say, especially for a Democrat.
Oh, thanks.
If I can get away with saying that, no, you're expressing yourself really well. And so let me ask this. Let me try to appeal to it from your perspective, if I can. What about this idea? What about the idea that there are those of us who are really unsettled? We feel really nervous, just about the idea. First and foremost, about the idea that our nation, right, which is supposed to be ours, and but which we claimed by dispossessing another people. So we have this example in our history of the people living here, you know, the people who used to live here no longer being in control of their own destiny, the destiny of their own ancestral homeland. So we have that example to look to. There's this fear, first and foremost, in our minds that we are not right now in control of who comes in and comes out and who may one day dispossess us. What if it were the case that if we could be shown, if we could be reassured on that issue, on the issue of control, of are we in control of our own borders, we could become much more reasonable and much less sort of worried and much less easily spooked about a conversation of, okay, now that we have that control, let's look at being generous about who we let in. And so building the wall might actually help those of us who are insecure about our borders open up a little bit more to the idea of saying, yeah, you know, there's a lot of people who are not completely like us. They look different. They talk different. Maybe they have a slightly different culture. But this gal, Jill, she makes a really good point. Let's maybe try to be a little bit less judgmental here. But we couldn't get to that point. Maybe we can't.
Well, okay, wait. Hold on. Wait. Hold on. I want to understand your take on the wall then. Okay, maybe I don't know how you see it. So you want it like what, from 3,000 mile, or like what are we talking? Because I mean, there's quite a bit of like already, like, you know, border that they've put up. You know, I know a lot of times it gets cut. They cut it with wires and whatnot. But I mean, there's also, like Trump was saying, oh well, it's not going to be like the whole thing because there's some rivers and whatever, like natural terrain that's in not easily crossed anyway. So what do you say? What is your idea of it?
Well, here's the thing. I'm doing a little bit of devil's advocacy here because I don't actually support the idea of a border wall. I think that it's I think that it's a ineffective way of, let's say, protecting the demographic health of your country. I think building a wall is better than nothing. So I guess I should say I'm not opposed to the wall, but I think it's better than nothing. But I actually think it's a very, very blunt means of protecting a nation's demographic health. But what I would say is this: let's put it on a spectrum. Okay, let's put it on a spectrum from complete lawlessness on one end to complete hermetic control on the other. So, you know, maybe in one worst case scenario, there's total anarchy and anybody who wants to can get into the country. And then in the other scenario, there's like complete control and nobody gets in unless they are cleared through customs. I don't want to live necessarily in that other end of the spectrum world, but I do feel right now like we're in a world that's way too close to the anarchy end of the spectrum. So I just put the wall on that spectrum as, you know, maybe it only covers a certain area. Okay, so then, you know, it gets us a little bit closer to where I'm comfortable. Maybe it's a huge Great Wall of, you know, maybe it makes the Great Wall of China look like it was made with Lincoln logs, and it's, you know, this massive wall that keeps everybody out. Okay, well now, you know, now we're way beyond what even I would hope for, right? But something is better than nothing. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is, without having to worry about a very specific standard of, well, how big is the wall? You know, how much territory does it cover? How tall is it? Whatever. Because I think, and I'm not mocking you by, I'm sort of using
No, I'm just trying to
on
say,
it, but
like,
I'm not.
are you one of these people that's like, okay, yes, we want it? Because I mean, when you first heard, Trump on the campaign trail, oh my, I mean, he was making it sound like it's going to be from one end to the other. You know what I mean? Like 3,000 miles long, or however long exactly it is with Mexico's border, and it just made it sound like it was going to be this like huge thing. And then he always going, oh well, now it just got 10 feet taller and all this kind of stuff, and I'm just like. So I don't know. Anyway, okay. So you're just saying that it maybe like a certain part or whatever, maybe, and I don't think that's horrible either. But the way that he has, been so, pounding this issue, it's like he makes it sound like it's just very divisive and racist and just like I said, not building bridges. It's just I don't know.
Well, but on the other hand, you yourself admitted just a little while ago that border crossings have gone down under Trump, right?
Yeah, so maybe the way that he's being his like rhetoric, I guess, is getting through.
Yeah, so it seems
So
like his approach, as divisive as it is, seems to be working. He's even without having built a wall, it seems that he's discouraging people from coming in,
right.
and that is a good segue for me to really quick address something from the comments.
Okay.
One of the people listening in says, they're being a little hard on me. They say, what the fuck? Ted thinks a wall is no good. So what does he want? Just let in tens of millions of Mexicans? So let me clarify my position a little bit here. And then you can respond to my position and tell me
Okay,
where
wait. So now you're getting ribbed by your peoples. Okay.
I wouldn't call anybody my people.
All right. Well, they're not.
I think
I'm guessing you're not having too many liberal Democrats listening right now. So okay.
Well, yeah, but don't you remember the message that you've been hammering home from the beginning is judge everybody as an individual. Don't make sweeping judgments. So come on, Jill, we've got to let everybody speak for themselves here. Okay,
True.
we have to let everyone speak for themselves, and
Okay.
that's what I'm going to try to do right now by explaining my position on the wall. My view on the wall is that I think that a desperate need for a wall is in some ways the sign of a people who have certain cultural or social insecurities. And by insecurities, I don't mean that in the psychological sense, like, somebody would say, oh, well, you're only worried about these people because you feel insecure. I mean, certain areas, certain gaps in the way that we actually keep ourselves secure. And so what I would describe as the best way for a people to protect their culture, to protect their let's say the demography, the culture, the mores of their society would be through some sort of interpersonal or social galvanization that punished the transgression of those mores, the changing of, the radical changing of that demography, the what was the other one I listed? The transgression of that culture, right? And I think that the real sort of the focus on the wall, the concern over the wall today comes from an either implicit or explicit realization on the part of a lot of conservative Americans that we no longer have that sort of galvanic culture that punishes this like crazy centrifugal change that we're seeing. And I think that they're correct. I think we live in a culture today that's like completely deracinated, in which any kind of the enforcement, the sort of communal enforcement of any kind of mores or standards is almost in and of itself like wrong, and it's something that you can't do. And also one where productive people are forced by the state to fund the furthered existence of non-productive people. I know that probably sounds extremely harsh to you, but what I would most prefer as a solution to the demographic or immigration concerns of the people who are concerned about those things, and I'm somebody who is to see our culture change and to see our culture just get a little bit harder for people who aren't like us to become a part of. In other words, what I'd like to see is a much greater internal social force towards assimilation, forcing assimilation, that would take the people who are coming in and really like put them, sort of mold them into something that was a lot more palatable to the people who are already here, or in the case of many of them, simply dissuade them from showing up at all, because nobody would be in their home country saying, hey, yeah, we can just go to America, go get on welfare, never have to learn English, and we'll be fine. The sort of people who would be attracted to that scenario just wouldn't be anymore, because we would no longer be a country that that confirmed that idea. What do you think about that? I've said a mouthful, and I'm sure I've said at least one or two things that offend your sensibilities. So let me hear.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't think, isn't there a thing where they can't get on welfare? Right? If you don't have a Social Security card, if you don't have a Social Security number, you can't, they don't just give them welfare. Like, there's probably more Trump, honestly, there's probably more Trump voters in West Virginia and a few other states that are on welfare that are, you know what I mean? Like, you can't get just welfare if you're not a citizen and you don't have a Social Security number. So, I mean, a lot of times I think that's what, you know, that's been the argument, is like, oh, they come over and take this and take that and take. And it's like I said, I see it from the other side and go, they're helping, you know, to do jobs that are like most, the average, I mean, think about it, like the kids today, like the millennials or whatever, you know what I mean? I don't know how old you are, but even younger than you, like they're not going to go and, you know, do that backbreaking work for hours on end in the sun, in the hot sun like that, you know what I mean? And so, and, you know, just in terms of like, I guess I'm just talking about the people that work in the agricultural field, but I mean, in just many other fields that just the average American isn't going to do those jobs or doesn't want to do those jobs. I don't know.
You've given me a lot to chew on here. I reject the idea that there are jobs. I think this is the sort of the George W. Bush lie that there are jobs Americans just won't do. I really dislike that idea. But we can take that up.
Okay, wait. Okay. You know the guy, you've heard of Morgan Spurlock, right?
The name is familiar to me, but I'm probably not as well educated as you are. So go ahead and explain it. I'm sure you sound very educated yourself, but he is somebody that did a show called Inside Man, and he went and like he would do different jobs, right? So he went and like embedded himself with Mexican migrant workers down, you know, not far from where my mom was living at the time, that were like picking the citrus, and he barely survived the day. Like he was going like he couldn't even hack it. And it was like these people would just spend like they do like 8 to 10 hour days in like blistering heat. Like it's hot in Florida, you know, in the summer. So it's like that's what I'm saying. It's like there's a lot of jobs that it's just Americans either don't want to do or can't even cut it, because it's just we're so a lot of times used to just, you know, lap of luxury kind of thing. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh yeah, you know, whatever, everything's so instant, and you know, we don't have to do backbreaking work. You know, so there, I don't know. I guess I just keep going to the agriculture example because that always stands out in my mind. Like a lot of times the migrant workers will come, they do the work, but then a lot of times then they go back. They don't. They're not. You know what I mean? But then I guess everybody has problems with the ones that have kids here, and then the kids becomes a citizen, and then that's, you know what I mean? So I don't know. It's I don't know.
I think it's just going to be an ongoing issue, I guess, until, unless there's some sort of solid change in the immigration plan, I guess, and again, hopefully it can be done without a wall, because honestly, you don't think that there's already tunnels that especially the drug dealers have already built anyhow? And then they're like, well, we'll just get if the wall is 10 feet, well, we'll just get a 11-foot ladder. You know what I mean? Like, there's a ways always around it. Like, I don't think the wall's going to really solve that much. It's just a big, to me, a waste of money. So, I mean, and a lot of people come in, they fly in, and then they overstay the visa. That's an issue too. So I don't think the wall's going to be the answer.
Well, I think that the point you make about the wall sort of is a good like ancillary support to the point I was trying to get across about the wall. I agree with you. I think a wall, and somebody in the chat, I forget who, so forgive me. I should look at the chat and give them proper credit, actually. But somebody in the chat said, a wall is really more symbolic than pragmatic. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think the real solution lies in having a resilient culture that just rejects abnormality, right? So then you don't have people coming in who are changing your culture or change. If you have a culture that strongly punishes the transgression of the mores that you have right now, those mores are going to last a lot longer, and we don't have that right now. So that's really where I think that's something that I think would be a much better solution to focus on than building a wall. And it could be that at least on the efficacy of walls that we have some common ground, which is exciting.
Well, okay, so it sounds like is your thing that you don't like the fact that maybe a lot of the people in this country don't speak English? Is that it? That they speak Spanish? Or like because it sounds like you have an issue with the Mexican immigrant situation.
That's a really fair question. So let me do a little soul searching here, and I'll try to really lay out what my concerns are vis-a-vis social change. I would say number one, my number one top concern, my biggest worry, is the expansion of the franchise to people who I think probably are not well equipped to exercise it. So in other words, I think that if you look at polling data, for example, on adherence to the principle of freedom of speech, it shows that native-born white Americans are much more much stronger proponents of abject free speech than are, for example, Hispanics. And that worries me. I think it makes me think like, okay, well, if these people have such different attitudes than we do, really they shouldn't be voting. But yet it seems to me that they are. They show up and either they get citizenship and are able to vote, or they have children who can just vote here. And that worries me. So that's number one. That's like at the top of my hierarchy is I see our political system being subverted by people who really don't think the way that I do. Number two, I would put the English thing on sort of the number two slot there. So this is an English-speaking country. I want it to continue to be an English-speaking country, and it worries me to think that there are let me put it to you this way: I have met people who were born in not only in this country but in Massachusetts, which is 90% non-Hispanic white. It's an extremely white state, who speak accented English, who cannot speak unaccented English because they're so used to speaking Spanish that English is like a foreign language to them. But they were born here and they've lived here their whole lives. So if even in a state like Massachusetts, you can have that kind of cultural enclaving where people are like going through their day-to-day lives never speaking anything other than Spanish, imagine what's going to happen to us if the whole country
I understand. Yeah, I get it. I lived in California too, off and on for 10 years. So like I've lived in, states that have a lot of Spanish population. So that's why I'm not as like, it's kind of used to it. And I took Spanish in school. so I can't speak it fluently, but I can get by. Mostly cuss words, but anyway. So yeah,
Right.
I get it. I mean, my friend, like I said, my friend's from Sweden. Her mom came here, right? Met her dad. Like her dad is American, went to Sweden, brought her back, and then she, learned English. She speaks Swedish mostly, but she did learn English. So I get it.
Well, okay, so you get that. So I mean, so what do you think just with those two things so far? And there are other things, there are other issues. Another one, and I'm sure that this will scandalize you, but another one is, look, this is a country that was founded by, white people, right? It wasn't founded by mestizos
Right.
from South and Central America. And yeah, I would like to see it remain a country that's, a white people, that's a country of white people, right? It doesn't bother me to have minorities living here. Having racial minorities here is part of the sort of foundational American story, because as long as we've been here, there have been black people here. So it's not like I'm applying a purity test and saying, well, we've got to, it's, the only people that I want to have around me are white. It's not that. It's that I have a slight difference from you in the way that I perceive people of different races, because it seems to me like you don't make any kind of group. I definitely do. I think that people have like certain genetic predispositions to live a certain way and think a certain way and be a certain way. And what I'd like to see is a maintenance of the demographic status quo that I was born into, because that's something that I'm used to, and it's something that that I already know works. Whereas having a bunch of people who don't look like me, even if they do learn English or whatever, having a bunch of people who don't look like me show up and outpopulate the people who do look like me, that's a black box to me at best. And at worst, I have indications that things are going to get worse if that happens. So those are three things. I've given you three things in order. One is political, two is cultural, and then three is, frankly, racial.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Okay. Wait. Okay. Wait. Before I forget them, the first one you had said that the people, Mexicans, I guess, are not into free speech. That's what you were saying, right? They don't believe in free speech.
Well, that's just an example, but yes.
Okay. I don't know if I would say that. I'm not sure. I mean, the Dreamer kids seem to be pretty like speaking out and pretty vocal. So I don't know. I don't know. I guess maybe that's interesting, because you said you're from Massachusetts, which is 90% white. See, I didn't realize that Massachusetts was 90% white. But anyway.
Yeah, it's a very white state.
Okay. Well, see, your perspective's a little different, like I said, because I've lived in other places, and I've traveled all through the U.S. I've been to Mexico, I've been to Toronto, Bahamas, whatever. I haven't traveled to Europe, but so I've at least I've been around a lot. I've lived in Miami, which is a melting pot, and then also Los Angeles. So those two places are. Those are melting pots, So I try to appreciate, other cultures. And like I said, if I don't judge, because you know what I mean, I just don't do that. I don't know. I try to be open. Mm-hmm.
Well, let me ask you this. So you say you just don't do it. Do you just not do it because you think
just because I don't think it's right. Like, I just don't think it's right to judge people or think that I'm better than somebody else or they're worse than me, or, you know what I mean? It's just each person is different. Each person has something maybe they can offer. And I think it's very narrow minded, like to be so like, I can only, associate with white people or people who speak English or people who, look like me. You know what I mean? It's like, to me, that's boring. And maybe because
Right.
I am a musician and I'm an artist, like also, I just have a wider appreciation for just different perspectives or different points of view.
Yeah.
I guess.
So let me see if I'm characterizing your position correctly. You're saying the reason why you choose not to judge people on sort of a group basis, or let's say a stereotypical basis, is not because you're convinced that such judgments would always be wrong, but because you have basically a cultural qualm against doing so. Is that right?
Well, I just think that everybody bleeds the same color. You know what I mean? We all bleed red. So it's like people are people are people are people. You know, I don't know. I mean, I guess you could say, oh, yeah, this person, this group is this, or this group is that. Yeah, everybody can make a judgment or a stereotype of who, you know what I'm saying? But what's that going to do? Like, how's that going to like help us to live together on the earth? You know what I mean? And like try to make the world hopefully a better place by putting everybody in a box each, you know, because you speak this language, then you're over here and you speak, you know, that's if you want to, like, religion's another one. Like I said, like I was born Jewish, but I don't practice because I think religion a lot of times doesn't bring people together. It separates people because it's like, unless
Yeah.
you're, you know what I'm saying? Like, unless you're Christian or unless you're Catholic or unless you're, you know what I mean? So I just like, I don't like organized religion really. What is this chart now? Let me see. What does this say? Support
So
for banning hate speech. Uh-huh. Okay. Wait, I can't, it's hard for me to see. It's unless, is this the most you can zoom in?
I can try to zoom in a little bit more if you want, or I can just read to you what
Okay.
the chart says.
Sure. Okay.
Give me a second. I'll try to zoom in.
If you can, if not, you can read it.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's good. I can see now. Okay.
Whoops. I think it just
Oops.
fell off.
It went too much.
My bad. My bad.
Okay. That's good.
I'm getting the hang of sharing, of screen
Oh,
sharing.
good. Yeah. No, good. You're very good. Right on. Okay. African American. Okay. What does it say? Support for banning hate speech. Okay. It's hard to see the percentages. Banning.
Well, let me read it. Let me read it to you as you're reading it.
Okay.
So it says support for banning hate speech, and the columns are divided into African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and white Americans. And if you want, I can tell you where the polling data comes from. I have that up in another tab, but let me just read the percents to you first. So
Okay.
African Americans come in at 62% support banning hate speech, while only 14% oppose it. Hispanics come in at 50% support banning hate speech, while only 24% oppose it. And then white Americans, and that would mean non-Hispanic whites, are 36% support banning it, while 43% oppose it. White Americans are the only group listed where more people oppose banning hate speech than support it. So without getting into, I guess to explain my position without getting into the merits of banning hate speech, because you might, whoa, that was weird. Did you see that?
Yeah.
That was like a
like a zoom, whatever, kind of like a, yeah, one of those like kaleidoscopy things or something.
yeah, suddenly I started tripping. I thought I had taken the wrong mushroom or something. So
Okay.
the way I look at it is, look, I oppose the idea of banning hate speech. That's a really scary, authoritarian, really I would even say like totalitarian idea to me, the idea that you would ban certain kinds of speech. I want to make sure that the country I live in is never a country where the government says you can say this sort of thing, but this is hate speech and you're not allowed to say it. And when I look at these numbers, the conclusion that I draw is if we let in too many Hispanics, that First Amendment freedom of speech concept that I personally hold really dear may be threatened simply by the people who think like me being outnumbered at the voting booth. Isn't that a logical thing for me to think?
Well, I mean, I don't see, again, like I said, I'm a bleeding heart liberal, so I'm not into hate speech myself. I don't think it's right. I just don't. I don't know if it should. Okay, I don't know if I would say it should be banned, but
Jill,
yeah.
let's take that out of the equation. Okay, let's suppose that it was an issue that you really. What's an issue that you really care about? A
The
political issue you really
guns,
care about? Guns.
gun
Okay.
issue.
Right. Okay. So suppose you saw a chart like this. Let's make up a new scenario so we can take out all the variables that we have sort of personal feelings attached to. Let's say that there was a group of people from a made-up imaginary country. Let's call it Wakanda. And let's suppose that.
Wait a minute. Isn't that the country that is in Black Panther?
Yeah, it is. I'm just being. But let's just use it for example.
Okay.
So let's say these Wakandans, they're really tech-savvy people, and they just love guns, and they're like constantly inventing new ways to kill each other, and they're just great at gun making and gunsmithing, and it's a really like core component of their belief that everybody should have a gun and guns should be everywhere. But you live in, I don't know, let's say you live in some European country where guns are more heavily restricted than they are here in the United States, right? And, you can get a gun for hunting or whatever. It's not impossible. But for the most part, you live in a basically gun-free society. There are countries I can think of that are like this. I mean, I think Finland, for example, it's difficult to get a gun. Some people have them, but there are a lot of hoops you have to jump through, and the vast majority of Finns don't own firearms, and they live in mostly a gun-free society. Suppose that's where you live. Suppose that's where you are, and there's some kind of there's some kind of economic reason or whatever why these Wakandans want to come and move into your country, and you say, look, I'm all about bridges. I'm not about walls. I want to let these people in, and then they start getting the right to vote, and they're voting, and they're saying, we really need to liberalize these gun laws. Everybody should own a gun. Would that worry you? And would you
okay. Yeah, I wouldn't like that, no.
Right, and would you conclude from that, okay, it might be a good idea to limit the number of Wakandans who can move to my country?
Oh, no, wait a minute. Okay, hold on. Because you're saying that Hispanic Americans, because 50% of them have support for banning hate speech, that's why you're upset with the Mexicans coming, or what?
That is the principal reason. Yes, exactly.
Really?
I have a certain sort of vision for the kind of world that I want to bring my own children into, right? If I ever have kids, right?
Yeah.
I grew up with taking certain things for granted. I grew up with within a certain political milieu that I've grown to really love. And one aspect of that is that we live in a world in the United States of really unparalleled free speech. We have some free speech issues, and free speech rights are not perfect here. But when I look at the circumstances of people in other countries around the world, even other first world countries, I conclude that we have it the best out of basically everybody when it comes to free speech. And it really alarms me when I see that of the immigrant populations that are moving in, the largest of those populations, which Hispanic Americans, seem to have a much more skeptical attitude about free speech than I do. But this is only an encapsulation of my overall worry. There are a number of issues, from free speech to welfare to the size of government, where it seems like some of the groups that are coming into our country have really their perspective on those issues is completely at odds with mine. And so I'm sort of like the guy in that gun-free country where all the Wakandans are coming in and they're bringing their guns and they're voting for more gun rights, right? I use that analogy to try to translate it to something that you would be more sympathetic to, because I know guns are something that you care about a little bit more. But the things that I care about include and
the poll says hate speech, not free speech. So are you equating hate speech and free speech to be one and the same?
Yeah, absolutely. I would make that equation. I would say.
Okay. Well, I don't see them as the same.
Right.
I would be alarmed if they were against free speech, but hate speech.
Okay, so then that's a semantic point, though, Jill. That's a semantic point. Let's put it this way. Let's stipulate that hate speech is what I'm all about. I'm a hate speaker. I'm a constant hate speaker, right? And I love hate speech. I just can't get enough hate speech.
Oh, geez. Okay.
All right. For me, that's an issue that I care about. What I'm really trying to get at here is, am I justified in looking at the political outlook of the people who are coming in as a group and saying, look, I can look at this polling data, I can make a group judgment, a group evaluation about these people and say that by and large, en masse, they are more opposed to hate speech than I am. They would be in favor of banning it, whereas I would vigorously oppose banning it. So I think it's not in my best interest to let them come here. Is it okay for me to make that evaluation?
Right. I see what you're saying. And I think the reason why you see the two minority groups, right, African Americans and Hispanic Americans, as opposed to white Americans, are the ones that are saying that they don't dig hate speech because they're mostly the targets of hate.
Okay.
But there you go. Maybe that's why.
You're getting bogged down in the specifics here. Let's pretend that let's pretend that it said gun rights, and instead of
I don't know if you wait a minute. One thing can kill people, and the other thing is just people. You know what I mean? Is something that's kind of mean spirited. So I don't know if you can equate. Maybe we should say a different issue. I don't know.
I really think it's important. I really think it's important to say gun rights, and here's why. Because I can tell that gun rights is something that's important to you, and what I want to do is I want to personalize this issue for you because I want you to understand the way that I feel about this, right? And the best way to do that.
Okay, no, I get it, but see, if you have if I'm taking the example that you gave of Finland, right, being like a long time established country, and then these newcomers coming in, they're not going to have that much as much political clout, you know what I mean, as the original OG Finlanders, right? I mean, they're not going to be able to just come in there and go, okay, well, we're here now, so F you, we're doing whatever the F we want. They're not going to do that. Like, and just like the Hispanic Americans aren't going to be able to really do that here. I mean, they can put in their vote.
Wait a second. Are you saying that my vote, when I go to the voting booth as a white American whose family has been in this country since before it was a country? I mean, my ancestors came here. My ancestors were Dutch, and they came here before the United States was incorporated. In fact, they originally arrived in New Amsterdam before it was called New York City. Okay. Are you saying that my vote as a sort of legacy white American when I go to the ballot box is worth more because of that heritage than the vote of a newly minted citizen from
I mean, it's not, I guess, yeah, because we're supposedly one, everybody has one vote, whatever, but then we've got the Electoral College. So, I mean, that comes into play too. So, I don't know.
Is the Electoral College based on what race you are or how long you've been in the country?
No.
So it seems to me, what I would say is that our political system is racially indiscriminate. And in fact, I would go further and say, I really want it to be that way. I don't want to live in a country where the government discriminates discriminates among citizens, among people who are full citizens and have the same, supposedly the same status that I do, right? I don't want to live in a country where the government starts dividing citizens along different lines and says, well, your family's been here for longer, or you're white and you're not, or whatever. I want to live in a country where, as far as citizens are concerned, the government is completely colorblind. So that's what I want. But then what I'm saying is, if that's what I want, I need to accept the fact that if a bunch of people come into the country who think in a very different way from me and want very different things from me, that once they become citizens, I'm going to have to accept that their vote is just as good as mine. So given that, I feel like I want to be really careful about who I let in. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. And it feels like, I think since Trump was elected, to me, it feels like we've got two different Americas. Like, it just seems extremely divided. Like, you know what I mean? That's like, I get your point. I understand your point, but I see it a little different. You know what I mean? Like I don't want hates, people being, what I mean, like saying racial slurs and homophobic slurs and things like that. I don't think it's good, and I think Trump has brought out a lot of ugliness, in a lot of people, just because the way he speaks. So I don't know,
Okay, so here's what I hear you saying. And you tell me if I'm wrong. What I hear you saying is, Ted, look, yes, of course, if you bring in people who think in a very different way from you and you give them full citizenship rights, they are going to change the system that you live under because they'll vote for different things than you'll vote for. But I don't care because I agree with them and I disagree with you. That's what I hear you saying.
I guess. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just like I said, too much of a diehard liberal, but I just think, everybody should have an equal chance and not be judged, and not be subjected to people, just cussing them out or, saying hateful things to them. And, I just wish people were more accepting of people. I don't know. Like, I just try to see the good. I try to see past what.
Oh, just
Hello?
that weird thing happened again. That weird trippy screen thing. Yeah, I'm going to stop screen sharing. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I was like, what happened? Okay. I think everybody should have an equal chance and be judged. What is it, by the content of their character, So I'm not as harsh on. I don't think it's my place, to be telling people what language they should speak or how they should think or whatever. It's like, just as long as somebody's not infringing on my rights and like hurting me, then great. Like each to their own. You know what I mean? And do unto others and all that kind of stuff.
So you would feel the exact same way if there were people coming into the country from let's say that they were people let's say that they're coming from an imaginary country that doesn't exist. Let's say they were coming from Narnia. Okay?
Yeah.
There are some gun restrictions that exist even now. In Massachusetts, you have to get a license to own a gun. You're not allowed to own a Tommy gun, for example. You can't buy a machine gun.
Good.
Individual citizens are not allowed to own thermonuclear weapons. Okay, yes, we live in a country with very, very liberal gun laws. I happen to support that, and I know you don't. But suppose there were people from an even more liberal country than ours, and when it came to guns, from a much more trigger-happy, gun-happy country than ours, and that country was Narnia, and these Narnians were coming in, and there was really no control over the number of them that came in, and whenever they had children, those children were automatically citizens, and the vast majority of them were saying things like, we really need to open up these gun laws and let people own machine guns, and it's crazy that people have to have licenses to buy guns.
That's what it feels like is going on right now. Like it feels like everybody's just saying, like, let's everybody have a gun. Like literally, like they're going, oh yeah, Trump's going, yeah, let the teachers have guns. I'm like, are you nuts?
So suppose Trump came from another planet. And who knows,
I think he is from another planet. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what I figured you were going to say. I figured you were going to say, you know what? Let's say that he comes from the planet.
He's
right?
Voltron or something. Yeah.
Voltron's actually kind of cool, but. So let's say that he comes from some planet of just like total nut job right-wing lunatics. And guess what? A bunch of spaceships are on their way, and a lot more Trumps are coming into the country. And they're people who think like Trump, and they talk like Trump, and they act like Trump. Wouldn't you want to turn those spaceships back? Wouldn't you want to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to be judgmental.
Well, see, I don't know. I just honestly, I don't have. To me, I don't have as much of an issue. And it's interesting because you live in a 90% white state, so I'm not sure where you're. I guess just because of this hate speech thing or something. I don't know. But I don't have a problem. You know what I mean? Like, I really don't with Spanish,
Well, we've
Hispanic.
established.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, we've established, Jill, that you don't have a problem with
No.
the cultural shifts that are happening.
No.
What I'm trying to get you to do is walk a mile in the other guy's shoes. I'm trying to see if you can put yourself in my position and say, what if I did have a problem with it? Then would I be a little more judgmental? What if it was just an army of Donald Trumps from the planet Dotard, and they were showing up? Would I be a little... And would you? I mean, come on, Kate. I feel like the reason why you're dodging this hypothetical is because you kind of know that you would say, wait a second, this is our country. We don't want it to be changed.
I see. That's it's hard. It's tough because, like I said, I'm used to being accepting of people and not judging people, and it's a melting pot and all that kind of stuff. So I don't. The thing that gets me is, if we're talking about guns, is yes, I believe everybody should be able to have a handgun or a hunting rifle. That's it. Not AR-15s and things that are, you can put a bump stock to and just mow down, however many people, like the guy did in Vegas. You know what I'm saying? That's insane. And even a lot of military people don't agree with, having AR-15s, assault weapons being so readily available, especially to like an 18-year-old kid. And everybody's all freaked out going, oh, well, the FBI missed a couple tips, and there was like the cops went to this guy Nicholas Cruz's house like 40 times or whatnot. Yes, there's going to be people, it's going to happen again, that are going to fall through the cracks for sure. Like, he totally fell through the cracks, and I believe some people should be fired probably over what happened, because obviously there was some negligence there. But let's not make it so that people can just go buy an AR-15 who fall through the cracks. Like, they just shouldn't be able to buy them, period. Like, I'm not saying that somebody that's a responsible gun owner, having a handgun or a hunting rifle, like, that's fine. I'm a liberal, but I'm going, yeah, fine, great. But the Second Amendment has been stretched so far that it's like, oh, well, yeah, everybody should just, I mean, imagine like somebody walking down my street, like I'm looking out the window, like some idiot walking down, carrying a machine gun. You know what I mean? Like, but it could happen, especially in Florida, seems like. They don't, you know what I mean? I'm not in Florida now.
Right, that was a very artful transition, Jill.
Thank you. I'm like, back to the gun debate.
Back to the guns thing. I mean, yeah, we can move on, because I think I belabored my demographics point enough. Let me just throw in a parting shot. Well, that's maybe a bad choice of moving to the gun debate, but
okay.
Let me make a closing comment to close the book on that, and then yes, I'll indulge this. We can talk about guns, because I can tell it's something you really want to talk about. But what I would say is this: to me, and this is going to sound, this might offend you, but to me, as a Trump supporter, it seems like your perspective is very unsympathetic. Like, you really are not. It seems like you're just very averse to the idea of sympathizing with my point of view. When I say, look, here's what I'm worried about. These people are coming in and they're changing things, because their attitudes are different. It seems to me like you get to be the person who says, well, because I like the direction that they're moving things, I'm the non-judgmental one and you're the judgmental one. Whereas I really think that if they were moving things in the other direction, if they were moving things for like more guns or whatever else you don't like, more hate speech, more whatever it is that you dislike.
But that's what it feels like right now, actually.
No, that's what. No, I don't think that you have the impression that Mexicans coming in are bringing a more liberal gun culture with them. I don't think that's what it feels like.
I mean, I'm saying Trump. People, Trump and the GOP and stuff like that, to me, it just feels like that's what's happening. Like a lot more pro-gun and hate speech and whatever. Like divide people and not bring people together and unify people. That's what it seems like.
All right, well then let's move on to that, because it seems to me like you're really concerned about the gun thing, and I want to hear you out on it. So, and we've kind of gone a long way from the starting off. The kicking off point here was Trump himself. So before we jump into guns, let me ask you: we've talked about a couple things here. We've talked about the wall. We've talked about immigration. We branched off a little bit to talk about hate speech, and now we're getting into guns. Are all of these issues that we've mentioned so far ways in which you think Trump is driving the Republican Party further to the right?
Yeah, I think so. It's just, it seems like he's just putting like an extreme, version of the Republican Party. It's just gone like totally, you know what I mean? And there's people that I respect that are conservative, and I listen to a lot of people. Most of them are never Trumpers, though. Like Jennifer Rubin or Rick Wilson or Steve Schmidt, people like that. Like I like them. I do. You know what I mean? Because I'm going, okay, they're Republican, but I get what they're. You know what I mean? Like it's just Trump is a very I don't know. Trust me, there's somebody in my life that I haven't seen for 2 months because I can't take it that he voted for Trump and he still supports him. And I'm just like, I don't know, like I tried to be very like, okay, back in the day, he would listen to Rush Limbaugh and I was like, all right, and he never tried to, it was just on in the background, whatever. And okay. But now he's very, like we reconnected after quite a long time, and now he's like total, like just all in with the Trump, and I'm just like I don't know, like I can't, like it's very scary. Like Trump comes across as wanting to be a dictator, honestly. So it's scary.
Well,
to somebody that's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I would say there is. This is what I would hope. As somebody who voted for Trump in the primaries, I voted for Trump again in the general. I'm still a huge fan and I'm still a supporter. What I would say is we are probably not the people that you think we are. And the way that we rationalize our support of Trump is probably very different from the motives that you are imparting to us. And I would say, I really hope that your friendship with this guy would not be a casualty of this political difference, because talking to you as somebody who's basically on like the opposite side of the spectrum from me politically, and I can tell, it still seems to me like you're somebody who, I'm just going to throw it out there, I like you. I like you. It seems like you're willing to come on and talk with me. It seems to me like you're the kind of person whose company I would enjoy. If we knew each other more informally. You're willing to, like, you're very fluid in the way that you're able to have a conversation. You seem like just the kind of person I would like. And to me personally, I would feel like I was really missing out. Like it would be a real shame if I just looked at you and said, no, she's a leftist, so I can't be friends with her. So
Thanks.
From that perspective, I really hope you'll take another look at this guy. It sounds like you've been pals in the past. There has to have been a reason for that. There has to be something about him that's good. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been pals with him.
Well, he's an old boyfriend, and I hadn't seen him for like literally like I would keep in touch with him every few years, but we didn't like see each other in person for like 14 years. And then reconnected with him in 2014, and then ended up moving back to the area, the same state, and like literally live like not that far. But it's not just that, but that's part of it. You know what I mean? The Trump thing. So that's just to give you a little more. But yeah. It's
yeah, I mean, I can say from my own experience, old flames are very tricky. It's very tricky.
Yes.
It's very awkward to know how to feel about them.
Yes. No, I appreciate you too. Listen, I appreciate your points of view, and I do, and I'm trying to understand, but it's hard. You know what I mean? Because like Trump is a force. Like he's just. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah, but listen, oh, listen, here's the thing. Me and your old boyfriend and literally tens of millions of other people in this country, for some reason, we've gotten it into our heads that Trump is a force for good, that he is making the world that our children are going to inherit better, not worse. And I know that you think like you're pulling your hair out, like that's just so crazy. How could anybody think that? But I promise you, we do. So there's something like this is why I'm really happy that we're getting to have this conversation, because to me, the fact that anybody would vote for like Hillary Clinton, just for example. I know she's yesterday's news, but just the whole Democratic Party, to me, that's the destructive force in our country. I see people like her, I see the Democratic Party, and I think, I don't understand how anybody could support these people. And that's why I really want to talk to you, because what I want to do is I want to understand you. I really do want to understand you, Jill.
Well, see, okay, I have to say, like, okay, I was pretty young when Reagan was around, but like let's just say George W. Bush, right? Like I was pissed for a couple weeks, you know what I mean? Like when he won again, but I was like, okay, I got over it. But this guy, like I've been pissed the whole year. Like I'm just like I can't, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily like, oh, it's the Republicans won, you know, like won, or a Republican won, not the Democrat. It's just that the whole way that it came, the whole election. I mean, and if you get into like the whole issue of Russia and all that kind of stuff. I mean, now supposedly they're openly saying it on like Russian TV shows, like, you know what I mean? Going, oh yeah, he's our guy, you know, kind of thing. And it's like they're like brag about it. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a lot of evidence coming out that like he was basically helped by them. You know what I mean? So that's part of it too. Like I just feel like it was the whole thing was a stolen election. You know? So it's just hard, you know? That's it. I'm not saying that Hillary was perfect, but as a woman, it just felt like that was the natural progression. You know what I mean? That it just felt like it was time, finally, for a female leader in this country. So, I don't know. It just feels like there something happened in the election that wasn't quite right, you know? And that, you know, apparently Bob Mueller is, you know, picking people off now, you know, pretty quick now. So he keeps indicting people and getting guilty pleas and whatnot. So I don't know, you know, I don't feel that he's a total legitimate president. I'm sorry to say.
So you think that he's an illegitimate president because the results of the election were influenced by Russia?
They supposedly hacked. They just said 7 states. So, but supposedly no votes were changed. And it's like, really? Like they just got into the voting system, but then they looked around and then said, okay, you know, see ya, whatever. Like they didn't change any votes. Like, I don't know.
All right, I want to get to the bottom of this, Jill, because here's the thing. I have a suspicion. Mm-hmm. And my suspicion is that the way that people feel about politicians is that there's sort of a feeling hierarchy. And at the top of the feeling hierarchy is like an emotion, basically a gut reaction. And I'm not excluding myself from this. I think that this is generally true of most human beings, that there's a gut reaction. You have like a feeling, just like a raw emotion that a politician induces in you. And then second down from like that top of the hierarchy is a political, let's say the political ideation of that feeling. So you have a gut reaction, you don't like somebody, and then you translate that into a political interpretation, an ideological interpretation. This person supports X, Y, and Z, and I don't. And then finally, at like the bottom of the hierarchy is are issues of character. So it's like feeling, politics, and then finally character. And the character stuff is like, well, he slept with an intern in the Oval Office, or he is working with the Russians, or whatever. He didn't show up when he was in the National Guard and his daddy was a congressman. It's like some issue of character, right? Or Barack Obama, like he was just a community organizer. What does he know, right? And I think that what happens is that we flip this hierarchy on its head. That the thing that's really driving us, like the gut emotion, is put way down in the back, and we don't talk about that. And then the political ideation of that emotion is something that we talk about a bit. And then the thing that we love to focus on, and I think the reason why we love to focus on it is because it's the least risky thing to talk about. And I can go into why I believe that later. But the thing that we seem to love to focus on is like character issues. So it's like, yes, Obama makes me uncomfortable just in general. And yes, there are very specific policy things that he's pursuing that I don't like. But I really want to talk about, the Larry Craig allegations. Or I really want to talk about how he made that Marine hold an umbrella for him and what a Nancy boy he looks like or something, right? And I see this on my own side and I see it on the other side. So this is a very long question, but I'll put it to you. Do you think that your focus on this Russia thing might be a bit of translation on your part, that you're translating some feeling from where it's really coming from into this, scandal du jour?
No, I think that it's not a witch hunt. I think it's a legit thing, that there was something going on. I mean, Trump has had history with Russia for like 30 years. You know what I mean? So he's been going back and forth there like for years. So he likes Russia apparently, and they seem to like him. So it just was a natural fit. You know what I mean? They basically saw him as their guy, and like I said, they're talking openly on Russian TV now about the fact that he's their dude, and that that it's better off for them as long as he's in power. Putin hated Hillary, you know what I mean? So that was part of it too. So, that he didn't want her, and they got to work, basically dividing the Democratic Party, whatever they were doing, putting stuff on Facebook and even Twitter and whatnot, and YouTube videos and all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, they basically interfered in our electoral process. Like if Trump won fair and square, like truly did, then fine. But I don't think he did. So, and then plus the fact that he's extremely just the way that he is, like he just, not only his character issues, but just as a person, he's just not, I don't think he's a good person. I just don't. Right.
So in other words, you just have a gut feeling.
Yeah. I just don't, I mean, he was a real estate, dealing with real estate in New York back in the day. So he's had like mob, dealt with the mob. Like if you want to do anything in construction in New York, you're pretty much like dealing with the mob, plus with working in, having these casinos and whatnot. So it's like, he's always had, dirty ties. You know what I mean? He's not like a solid character. I don't like his character at all. And like whatever you think about Obama, because I don't think you care for him very much, but at least, to me, I feel like has solid character. He never had porn star payoffs and affairs, and he's had one marriage, you know what I mean? So he's not on his third marriage and cheating on that wife, and you know what I mean? Like Trump is just not like he's all about himself. To me, he just seems like it's all about Trump. And he doesn't care, you know what I mean, pretty much about anybody. And I mean, and speaking of umbrellas, they showed a picture of him, holding the umbrella for himself, going up to Air Force One, and here's Melania and Barron trailing behind, getting wet in the rain. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't care. Like he's to me, he's a selfish asshole. I'm sorry if I can cuss. Sorry. Oops.
No, yeah, you can. You can. You're allowed to.
Okay.
Jill, this is the open forum. You can say whatever you want. I want you to be yourself.
And I am sorry out for all the people that are Trump supporters that are listening, and sorry to you, Ted, but yeah, I think he's a vile person. He's just vile to me. Like I don't think I've ever, like I said, I was pissed for a couple weeks when George W. Bush voted or won. My friend voted for him. I give her shit every now and again. Back then I would. I was upset for a couple weeks and then I let it go. I wasn't like, oh my God, like our country's in trouble. You know what I mean? With him. I didn't think, oh, he's gonna, he's not a traitor. Like he wasn't dealing with a foreign power to win you know what I mean? Like who knows if his election, one of the times with the hanging chads, like that was weird too. But it wasn't like, you know what I mean? Like a big thing where it's like he's being investigated by the FBI and then a special counsel and, you know what I'm saying? Like to me, I don't think that they make investigations like that unless there's something to it. So, everybody keeps going, oh, yeah, whatever. It's, all this stuff happened before these people joined the campaign. It's like, well, but still, like, I think you're the company you keep. And it's like all the people around him were criminals, basically. Paul Manafort, like that guy was like huge money launderer and tax evader and whatever else he was doing. Bank fraud, like, Mike Flynn. Like all these people were just questionable, and I don't respect any of them. You know what I mean? To me, I'm like they're not patriots. They're traitors. That's what I think. So
we've been beelining around a really broad map of personal character stories, vignettes, anecdotes, and scandals from Trump. Trump sleeping with porn stars, to owning casinos, to Paul Manafort, to working with the mafia, to the Russians, and in general.
Well, it's all in a big, what do you call it? Like just plethora of just bad character flaws and just, you know what I mean? I don't think this person is like fit to lead our country. I really don't. And I think
the thing that really stuck out to me, Jill, was when you just said, he's vile, he's an asshole, and I don't feel.
And I'm sorry, I know that you support him, but I don't know.
I mean, this is the thing. It's just I think that you have a gut reaction to Trump. You have a gut reaction to, and I'm not saying this to pick on you. I really think that this is a basically universal phenomenon. I see it with everybody. They have gut reactions to certain people. Then they ideate those reactions along political lines. They say, look, he supports this, he's opposed to this, whatever. And then finally, the last tier is they look for concrete anecdotal examples to prove why the person's bad. And I've seen right-wing people do it with Obama, and I could list, I promise you, for every scandal or impropriety you list about Trump, I could come up with one for Obama. And I saw people doing it when I first became cognizant of it was during the George W. Bush thing, because I was a little young when Clinton was president to really be paying. To be honest, I was not paying attention to politics when Clinton was president, but I sort of started paying attention when George W. Bush was president, and I noticed, I realized, okay, there are all these different scandals that you could follow up on with George W. Bush if you wanted to, and you could make them your exhibit A, B, C, and D for why he's a bad guy, because maybe he missed some musters when he was in the National Guard, or maybe he did cocaine, right? There were all these different stories that were sort of specific anecdotes about Bush. But the reason people didn't like him was not any one of those things. It was a gut reaction. Some people had a really viscerally negative gut reaction to George W. Bush. I can tell you personally, a really viscerally negative gut reaction to Barack Obama. And I think you're having the same thing for Trump.
Well, wait, you've always been a Republican, right?
As long as I've been voting, I've been a Republican.
Okay, so that's probably why. I'm guessing. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but I also think that there's something deeper there. I think that I'm sort of I'm really the opposite of you in outlook when it comes to people's innate qualities. It seems to me like you have an idea, and it's kind of a noble idea. I like it, to be honest, but it just isn't one that I share, that people are like blank slates and you shouldn't judge anybody, without getting to know them. And it doesn't matter what group you belong to. I basically take the opposite view of humanity. I'm sort of extremely deterministic. So I think like there's something about me that I was born with, like something genetic that predisposed me to being the kind of guy that I am, to having to looking at people in the way that I do. And even if I hadn't been born, well, actually, I was about to say, even if I hadn't been born into a Republican family, but in point of fact, I was not. My parents, my mother has gotten much more political as she's gotten older, but when I sort of was first getting interested in politics, I would say that my mom was largely apolitical. She didn't really pay close attention to politics. And my father has always been a very, very apolitical guy. He just does not care about politics.
So your parents, wait, what were they? Were they both registered Republicans or Democrats or independents?
My mom was a registered Democrat when she was younger. As she's gotten older and she's like started paying more attention to politics, she's changed and become a Republican. My father is probably not enrolled in any political party, although I don't know for a fact, but I would guess he's so apolitical that I've never even talked to him about it. But I would guess that I know that he votes. What's that?
I was going to say, so then how does he vote if he's not in, like he hasn't registered with any party?
He just is unenrolled. You can be an unenrolled voter, right? So when you register to vote, you can register as a Republican or a Democrat, or you can say, if you want to, you can say to the, I don't know, maybe it's different in Florida, but here in Massachusetts, this is how it works. You can say, I want to register as a Republican or a Democrat or a Libertarian, whatever. Or you can say to the person at the town hall or wherever you register to vote, I want to be unenrolled. I don't want to be enrolled in a party, but I still want to vote.
Okay, so you're kind of like a free agent then. You're just like, I can vote however I want, right? I guess.
Yes. And here in Massachusetts, at least, the majority of voters, there are more unenrolled voters than there are Republicans or Democrats.
Okay. That's interesting.
And I think that my father is probably unenrolled. He's a very apolitical guy. But my point is just that there was something about me, and I really think it was something biological, it was something genetic. There was something about me that predisposed me, in my opinion, to viewing a guy like Barack Obama with a very jaundiced eye, to having a sort of visceral gut reaction against, I guess, the bulk message of the Democratic Party. And I'm kind of guessing that your reaction to Trump comes from a similar place. I know I'm projecting my own experiences onto you a little bit, but
no, listen, honestly, listen. I watched the Republican debates, and I like John Kasich, I have to say. I thought he, you know what I mean? There were, and even Jeb Bush. There's some Republicans that, if you know what I mean, I wouldn't be like this. I'm telling you. Like I hardly ever paid attention to politics. Like I would vote, but that's about it. Like in the presidential election, there was one I got pissed one time, and I just said, nah, I don't want any of them, and I didn't vote one presidential election. But I was never like, I'm voting in all the, special elections and all the, midterms and all that kind of stuff. Now I'm like, you betcha. Like I'm voting every chance that I can. Like I even voted for some little election that happened in my town here. So I'm in North Carolina now. But yeah, like I'm totally like, I pay attention like pretty much every day to like what's up now, because this is what this person, Trump has done to a lot of people. Like I've been on Twitter for a long time and I barely used it. And then once I knew that was his thing, like I was like, okay. And that's when I got, like about a year ago, I started like all the time.
And you're saying that the thing that made Trump this catalyst in your life wasn't it wasn't a gut feeling you had about him, but it was like a specific scandal. There was some specific thing.
No, I think like I said, I feel like honestly, if we didn't have the checks and balances that we have, I'm telling you, like he loves Duterte, he loves Putin, he loves, autocratic leaders. Okay, like this is what he would want for himself. Trust. If we didn't have checks and balances, this dude would turn our country into an autocracy. Like
I have
literally.
to ask, this is really tangential, but I have to ask because you've mentioned the Philippines and you mentioned Russia before, and you said, well, look, Russia, they really love Trump and they think that he's their guy. Aren't you kind of contradicting what you said at the beginning of the stream? Because at the beginning of the stream, you said, well, look, I'm really upset that Trump is destroying our credibility on the world stage, and
certain countries like him, but other allies, like this is like supposedly the Mexican president was supposed to come, again, and they canceled, and like Australia mocks him, and other countries in Europe don't dig him. Like he's not invited to the Prince Harry's wedding and whatnot. Like there's certain countries that they're okay with him because he likes strong men. Those type of countries, yes. But there was a poll that they had like maybe a few months ago, and it was like our standing on the world stage has like really gone down since he's been in here. And the only countries that were liking him were Russia and Israel. That's it on the poll. So it was like, okay, because he's kind of buddies with, Netanyahu, and he's apparently in some deep trouble right now too. So who knows what shenanigans he's been up to. But yeah, like it just seems like either if somebody is like criminal or crooked in some way, or if they're a dictator or strongman. That's who Trump digs. That's who he looks up to. And those are the people that like him too.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
So other than the Philippines and Israel and Russia, everybody else hates Trump.
For the most part, they don't, you know what I mean? Somebody played a clip the other day on something showing like all the different countries around the world that like, that they each have like a Trump character that they just mock him. Like he's a joke, in a lot of countries. So they just see him as the way he comes across. It's just, I'm the best and it's all about me, and, who gives an F about anybody else, and, I'm just going to make it the way that I want it to be, and whatever. It's like he doesn't, why does he keep having rallies? Who has rallies? You know what I mean? After he won, why does he have to have rallies for his base? You know what I mean? Like that's just, to me, I'm like, what is that about? If you're always going to be around the people that elected you, then you're never going to win over the rest of the country either. And he really hasn't tried. That's why I just think we're like two countries now. You know what I mean? It's either the people that are hardcore Trump supporters or the rest of us. And again, I think you're really cool, and I like you, and I respect your opinions. But like, I think you're a little bit. I'm not sure. You know what I mean? In liking Trump, I have to like go, okay, But,
wait a second, Jill. I'm not going to let you get away with that. Finish your sentence.
You're a little suspect with that.
I'm a little suspect.
No, I mean, I don't know. To me, I guess maybe you're not like you don't see anything in the Mueller investigation, let's say, like that you don't think there's any truth to that.
I want to entertain your questions about the Mueller investigation, but before I do, I have to respond because I think I really feel like I've sort of bared my heart to you here. Like I've even sort of I've admitted things about my attitudes or whatever that some people might say are very, that's, I think some people on the left would look down on, but I've really tried to be honest. So I think it's too bad that you still, even after all this, you think that I'm suspect. But
I'm teasing. I'm half teasing, but I'm still like wondering, like, if you think that the Mueller investigation, if that's even, you know what I mean? Like, what do you think, if that gives you pause a little bit?
Here's what I've read about the Mueller investigation. What I've read about the Mueller investigation is that it's uncovered that there were efforts by Russian nationals to affect the outcome of the U.S. election in favor of Donald Trump. That Russian nationals were working behind the scenes, let's say, to convince Americans to vote for Donald Trump. That's what I understand from it. Is that what you understand from it?
Yeah, but it's more than that. It's the fact that he's like indicting people and like, you know what I mean? Like basically everybody that, was an important part of, the campaign and or after the fact, you know what I mean? Rick Gates was even still involved, you know what I mean, with Trump, even after Paul Manafort left the campaign. So, he stayed around, and then he even ran some pro-Trump PAC or something. So it's like he really, he's had people around him that were not legit people. You know what I mean? They were doing like shady stuff. So to me, it's just like, I think everybody's saying it's like the most corrupt, presidency since Nixon.
So what
like he's made Nixon look good.
Yeah, well, that seems like something that would be very difficult to do. But what are we talking about here? Are we talking about Russia, or are we talking about these indictments?
Both. Because I honestly think that even though he keeps saying no collusion all the time, it's like it's like me think it's those protesteth too much. You know what I mean? Like he just keeps saying that like all the time. Like every time he gets a chance, right? He's always going, no collusion, no collusion. And I'm like, I think he's just too much. Like he projects a lot. Like the things that he's guilty of, that's what he points the finger at other people. It's incredible. Like I've come to kind of figure out like how he is going to react to something or what he's going to do after watching him for this year. Pretty much on a daily basis. You know what I mean? Keeping up with, you know what I mean? Because it's so it was so alarming to me that this happened. That's why I think I'm paying attention to it more than like the average person, I guess, even maybe more than you. So.
Okay, so here's a counter narrative. Let's suppose that, and I think you're right. I mean, you're mentioning people who I've never heard of. I've heard of Bob Mueller and I've heard of Paul Manafort, but you've mentioned some other names in here that I don't know about.
Okay.
It seems to me like you're keeping closer tabs on this than me. So here's an idea. What if all of this stuff is just noise, and in the end, the effect that Donald Trump will or will not have on my life is not going to have anything to do with these people or this investigation, that the effect that Trump will have on my life will be really mostly the result of what policies he's able to initiate or what what policies he's able to quash, right? So it'll be the things that he changes about the way that our country is governed, not the way that he was, elected or the people he keeps company with.
Well, I mean, see, that's the thing. That's what I think is interesting, because it's almost like people that support him, they've gotten to the point where they just go, well, even if Russia did interfere, oh, well. Like, I'm going, yeah, okay. You know what I mean? Like, it's incredible. Like, as long as he's the president and he's enacting the policies that I'm digging, then who cares if he's a traitor or he colluded or the people around him colluded and all that kind of stuff. It's like, so that's interesting to me. Like a lot of Trump supporters are very like, oh yeah, we like Russia. Like it's weird. And Russia's not our friend, and I'm Russian. I'm part Russian. You know what I mean? It's like, I think Putin's a piece of whatever. I can't, I don't like him. I don't think he's a dictator. He's a killer, Like if he doesn't agree with anybody, he'll have them killed.
So yeah, I mean, here's another situation where I'll try to explain my point of view with a hypothetical, and let's see if I can make it work this time. So suppose that we had a president who was doing all the things that you really wanted, and you were like loving his initiatives, and you thought he was making the world a better place, and you thought that he was you thought that he was making the world a place that would be more hospitable to your descendants, to your children and grandchildren. And it was basically just that he was pursuing the vision of the world that you wanted to live in. And somebody came to you and said, yeah, he's doing all these great things, but listen to me, I've got this straight dope. He's really corrupt. And he's a really bad person because of this arcane scandal. And you said, well, what does this scandal have to do with policy? And the person said, nothing. It's got nothing to do with policy, but it's just really bad stuff because it's unfair and it's a lot of dirty dealing. How strongly would you feel an incentive to investigate what that person was saying?
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. But yeah, I don't agree with being a traitor. That's one thing that I have to say. Yeah, if somebody was found to have, rigged an election or, colluded with another, foreign power or whatever, or was doing the bidding of some other, foreign power, no. So no. I would say.
In your lifetime, who is the politician that you have most admired?
Admired? I like Obama. I think he was great, and I'm sure he made mistakes and wasn't perfect, okay? And I didn't follow every single thing that he did. I didn't. Like I said, I barely paid attention myself, right? So I was doing music and art and whatnot. So I had a different focus. But now it's like, yeah, and Trump, like I said, is I'm not against, I'm not saying, I want to just, make sure you understand, I'm not saying all Republicans, F them, whatever. I'm saying Trump personally. I just don't, you know what I mean? If anybody else had gotten the nomination, I liked John Kasich. Not sure he was necessarily presidential per se, but I still think he has a good character. I think he's a good, you know what I mean? Good guy. And also Jeb Bush. Other than that.
So what if I came to you and said, look, I can send you a lot of links to scandals or accusations of scandals involving Obama?
No, I know there's all kinds of stupid. Trust me, that the ex-boyfriend that voted for Trump, he had me over there watching every stupid thing on YouTube about Obama and Hillary and all that stuff. So I know.
Wait a second. So why is it that in the case of a politician that you like and who you gave as your answer for who you had the most respect for, these scandal stories are stupid? But in the case of Trump, who you dislike, suddenly this is really serious business.
Well, because there's a special counsel right now indicting people and getting guilty pleas. At first, before what Bob Mueller, started indicting people, I was still going, I knew that something was not right. But once he started having indictments, he's indicted people that I'd never heard of either. You're saying you've never heard of these people? Wow. Where do you, so how often are you tuning into the news? And I'm guessing you're watching Fox or what?
No, I'm not a Fox viewer. I don't have a television. I don't get terrestrial TV. I get a lot of my news from, there's a news aggregator called Drudge that I check on a pretty regular basis.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. And what about you? Are you a Breitbart reader or do you go to their website or whatever?
Not lately. I don't. You know what? Here, let me open up a history.
Well, Drudge Report, I know about them, and they're pretty right wing, right?
Well, Drudge is just a news aggregator. So yes, a lot of people have said that Matt Drudge, that that he displays a right-wing bias, but I'm not too concerned about it because the way that Drudge works is he just aggregates links to websites, and the websites are sites like, I don't know, CNN or MSNBC or whatever. He just all that he does is he just his page. You know, if you just go to drudgereport.com, what you'll see is a page of links. So it's just a pile of links to different stories. And what I like about it is that you can read like 80 headlines in 12 minutes, right? You know what I mean? Well, 12 minutes is even too much. You can read 80 headlines in 2 minutes.
Okay.
If you're really skimming and you're not clicking the links, right? So because he's just including links to other websites, it's hard for me to buy the idea that Drudge is. I know a lot of people on the left really don't like Drudge because they think that there's a selection bias with the stories that he chooses to link to. There's a reason why billions of people go to his site to find out what's going on in the world. So yeah, I mean, I get news from Drudge. I think I probably get news from mostly what you would consider pretty mainstream sources. It's just that they're not television; they're internet. I read internet links.
You can get. I mean, I watch MSNBC through online. Somebody posts it, and you can get it like either through YouTube or if you have Chromecast. Do you have or Google Chromecast? I don't know. You could do it, or do you just not? Or you just have not have a TV.
I don't have a. Well, actually, that's not true. I'm sitting in a room looking at a television that I have, but it's like a cathode ray tube TV. It's this like big old TV, and it doesn't have any kind of hookup. It doesn't hook up to the internet or anything like that.
Oh, it's not
it's
not a smart TV.
The only thing I use it for is like when my younger brother comes to visit, we play Super Nintendo on there.
Oh, cool. I was going to say, if you said Atari, I would be like, oh, yeah.
Oh, come on.
Do you know Atari?
Really, Atari? Well, yeah, I mean, I've played Atari before, but, you got to get with the times.
I know, but I'm just saying, old school, OG. That's like my era, so if that age tells you my age, so yeah.
Atari is pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, if I had an Atari, I'm sure we would play that too. But, I mean, I really don't like the idea. I really don't like the idea of dismissing a person's perspective or their point of view because, well, they're not reading the right sources or I mean, it seems like sort of an elitist instinct to say, well, you don't have access to the right information or information you're reading is biased.
No. It's okay. I mean, I'm just saying to me, it just, like I said, the thing of the country being two different Americas, because I think a lot of people, at least, like I said, this old boyfriend, he's totally like Fox News, Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, like, that whole, and I'm just going, you know what I mean? I couldn't, after a while, I was just going, I can't take it. So anyway, I just think each side is in its own bubble. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's kind of why I prefer to just focus on policy, because I think that, yeah, Jill, you are in a bubble. You don't like Trump, so what you're
But I don't like his policy either. I don't think it's cool that he was, basically, supposedly they're spending like more money. I forget how many billions extra to keep 8.9 million people off of healthcare. But they're spending like, I think 3.3 billion extra, I want to say a year, to keep 8.9 people off of healthcare. Like, it's bizarre. Like, I don't think.
To get a link to that, because that's a story I haven't heard.
Yeah,
but to me,
I might have the facts wrong, but I know that they're spending quite a bit of money just to keep people off of healthcare. Like
I'll tell you what, Jill. I'll tell you what. If you don't have the link handy, just send it to me later. Like, we're on Google Hangouts. Like, you can shoot me a message, and I will add it to the description of this YouTube video so that people listening to this later can go in and look at that link. Because definitely if that's something you don't like about him, I want people to be able to read it and make up their own minds. And but when I think of Trump and I think of policy, I think of like 5 like really core pillars, like immigration restrictionism, a more non-interventionist foreign policy, bridge building with what you would call strong men, but the countries that have not maybe been that have been sort of demagogued or on the outs with the United States, principally, chief among them Russia, but also countries like Syria. So that's 3. What did I say? 5. Let's add some more. Help me out here, chat. What are the other like big picture Trump policies? Immigration, foreign policy, so non-interventionism. The real reason I voted for Trump, the number one biggest reason, is that he was more of a non-interventionist than Hillary, and I really think that I've served in the military. I'm not saying that I'm a big military expert or something, but my perspective on this is that we do not have the capacity to fight infinite wars on infinite fronts around the world.
But see, that's what I think is what they said. They sort of said that she was the hawk on war, and it's like all of a sudden he goes and throws bombs over in Syria and Afghanistan, like in the first couple months.
Yeah, and I was very disappointed. I was extremely disappointed with the bombing.
Yeah. So what did you think about that then?
Well, like I said, that really bothered me a lot. But I'm, I mean, Trump is not a perfect avatar for what I would do. But he's way better than Hillary. If you look at Hillary, everywhere that woman has gone in her life, war, bloodshed, and misery have followed. I mean, she was in the White House. She was in the White House when we intervened in Bosnia and Herzegovina. She was in the United States Senate when we disastrously went to war in Iraq, and she voted to do that. She said, yeah, let's go for it. And, she sort of tried to retcon it later and say oh, well, I was really opposed to the war in Iraq. No, I mean, you can just go jump on YouTube and type in Hillary Clinton, Saddam speech or something like that. And you'll see her giving speeches on the floor of the Senate saying, oh yeah, we've got to go to Iraq and take out Saddam because he's got weapons of mass destruction. Then she was back in the White House for Libya, for the destruction of Libya, right? So I saw Hillary Clinton as a woman who was really a big-time war hawk, and I saw Trump as somebody who was striking a different tone. And I think that our conversation has kind of demonstrated that that's true. One of your biggest complaints about Trump is that he's so conciliatory towards Russia. I want to see us get along well with Russia. I do not want to see us engage in brinksmanship with a nuclear power.
No, I'm not saying about nuclear brinksmanship with them, but that's what he started doing with North Korea. I mean, and unless it's some big, charade that Putin and Kim Jong-un have worked out with each other. I mean, that's what people started saying too. Is this all just BS? It's putting on a show. Every time he wants to change the subject from the Russia investigation, then he's going to go and start, tweeting stuff to Kim Jong-un, calling him Rocket Man and whatnot, stuff like that. I just don't think, he's very diplomatic. He doesn't, and then he's gutted the State Department. It's insane. We don't even have an ambassador to South Korea. The guy that we mainly have handling North Korea is retiring next week. It's bizarre. We don't, and then all his cabinet members of his cabinet are just whatever their agency, what they were appointed to, they basically have been gutting them or just doing shenanigans, going flying all over the place. That Tom Price, the head of Health and Human Resources, had to resign because he was jet setting all over the place, first class and whatnot. Steve Mnuchin, taking his wife up to Fort Knox during the eclipse, so they could get a better view of it. And then they take pictures, holding a bunch of money and whatnot, just stuff like that. It's just off-putting. It just seems like they're making a mockery of the presidency. That's what it seems like.
Yeah, again, I'm seeing a pattern emerging here, Jill, where I try to bring it back out to the big picture stuff, and then you want to bring it back to the small stuff. And I'm not saying that gutting the State Department, that's not a small thing. That's not a small thing.
And
Well,
Rex Tillerson.
I don't know
Well,
that he's gutted the State Department.
Yes, he has. Okay, see, this is the thing. You've got to get either some kind of TV or or something. I don't know, because yeah, Rex Tillerson. Seriously, like there's so many ambassadorships that have remained unfilled a year later, and Rex Tillerson, he got the Medal of Freedom from Putin. Like, it just seems like every single person that's around Trump, including Trump, has ties to Russia, like has something to do with Russia. They all, Mike Flynn was doing, stuff for Russia. Paul Manafort, Ukraine and Russia work, and Rick Gates, his like deputy, and you know what I mean? Just everybody that's getting indicted. George Papadopoulos, Carter Page, like he hasn't been indicted yet, but I mean, he was, he bragged that he was like some special envoy to Russia or something. Like, so, it's just, I'm telling you, like, if you start looking a little more into it, because I think you support him so much that I think you're not like seeing like what's, you know what I mean? What's really the true thing of what's going on.
Well, I'm very sensitive to that criticism, because this whole time I've been thinking to myself, she hates Trump so much that she's not seeing the big picture. So to hear you say you love Trump so much that you're not seeing the big picture, that to me it sounds like I'm eating my own thoughts or whatever, So I'm sensitive to that criticism, and I promise you that I will try to investigate this stuff in good faith and with an open mind. So shoot me links to all these stories.
And if I can, I'll send you stuff here and there too. I won't bombard you all the time, but yeah, if I see something that you might, you know what I mean, that sort of shows you, like, see, I watch Rachel Maddow, and I know everybody goes, oh, Rachel Madcow or whatever, you know what I mean? But she kind of tells, like, she gives like a very big, just like it's almost like a story, but she like gives background on like what the thing is. So it's not a story, but she gives like the background, on what's going on. So it'll start like so you can follow it. It's not just like, oh yeah, this happened and spitting out a bunch of like facts and figures. It's like, okay, this is on this day, this happened, and then it led to this, and then now this.
In other words, she's creating a narrative.
Well, it's just it's not that she's just making it up. Like she links up with whatever's reporting in, whoever, Washington Post, New York Times, whatever. And I know those are probably considered like, that's the whole thing, left wing or liberal publications or whatever. And just like Trump was always going, oh, the fake news and, like that, that kind of thing. And it's like, that's not good either. Like a lot of fascists started that way, by saying that the press is the enemy of the people and whatnot. So that the only person that the only voice that the people will listen to is theirs, instead of, no, we need a free press. That's what I'm saying. Like there's a lot of things that he's doing that are very like taking the steps towards fascism. So it's like that's it's scary.
Do you think that criticizing quote unquote fake news jeopardizes the free press?
Yeah. Because it's making people go, oh, I'm not going to listen to them because that's all fake. Like there is true fake news. Like there's definitely fake news on the internet. Like you could tell there's certain sites that you go to and you're like, oh, this is just clickbait, or you know what I mean? Like they want to sell you something or whatever. You could tell it's not legit news. But main publications that have been around for like years and years, like the New York Times and Washington Post and Wall Street Journal and stuff like that, like he's calling, you know what I mean? It's not good that he's trying to just poison the free press and make everybody just think, oh, it's all fake, don't listen. So it's like basically if anything bad comes out about Trump, then no one will believe it. Like that's what he wants, like nobody to listen to it, because it's not him saying what he wants everybody to hear.
Yeah, I mean, if if I left a bad review for a restaurant on Yelp, am I endangering the restaurant industry as a whole?
No, I mean, you can, leave whatever review. I mean, if it's legit, if like you legitimately didn't like the restaurant or whatever, no.
Okay, so I mean,
You could say it, yeah.
I think that there's a very good standard being set with the answer that you just gave. I don't think that any industry is so indispensable that they should be above criticism. Do you?
No, you can be critical, but he's trying to do like a blanket thing and just go, anybody but Fox News basically is fake news. Like he loves Fox News because it's almost like Trump TV. That's why I was wondering, like, do you watch Fox? Because they're pretty much like his mouthpiece. Like he tweets all the time, like this and this, at Fox News. You know what I mean? Like he quotes them all the time. He called into Judge Jeanine Pirro's show Saturday night. Like it's amazing. Like he basically like uses Twitter as his mouthpiece, and then he like goes in cahoots with Fox News. I'm telling you, like it's incredible.
Yeah, no, but I just don't see the problem with that. I guess what I would say is this: I don't see how a really effective and free and reliable press could be seriously threatened by a president complaining about them.
No. He's doing more. Listen, he's doing more than complaining.
Well, let me finish my thought here. If that was the case, I would say we would have lost our free press long ago, because Barack Obama used to be really critical of Fox News and say that Fox News was, he used to make jokes about it and say that, Fox News is just a propaganda organization.
Pretty much. I mean, they're an entertainment company.
Right. When Bill Clinton was president, he gave a very famous speech where he, after the Oklahoma City bombings, where he tried to make a connection between Timothy McVeigh and talk radio. And as it turned out, Timothy McVeigh was not influenced by talk radio, but Bill Clinton was just getting a lot of heat from guys like Rush Limbaugh on talk radio, and he wanted to, he basically smeared them. He used the tragedy as an opportunity to disparage people who were critical of him. I'm not justifying what Obama said or what Bill Clinton said, or even what Trump says about fake news. What I'm saying is that I don't think that any of these things were a serious threat to the free press.
No. I mean, I know that I know.
People are smart enough to make up their own minds, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, I understand there's other presidents. There's pretty much every president has had like a love-hate relationship with the press. But I don't think any other president other than Trump has been so like vocal, like it's like every other day. And like how many tweets?
Let me ask you this. Which president said this? Nothing can now be believed which is read in a newspaper.
Nothing that can now. And this was a U.S. president?
Yeah, which U.S. president famously said, this is a very famous quote, "Nothing can now be believed which is read in the newspaper."
Oh, God. I want to say it was somebody back in the 60s. Nixon?
Well, actually, it was Thomas Jefferson who said that.
Oh, yeah?
So
okay.
The point that I'm making here, and in fact, Thomas Jefferson said a lot of really negative things about the press. His predecessor, John Adams, actually tried to institute laws to prevent the Alien and Sedition Acts. The purpose of those laws was to prevent the press from being as scathingly critical of him as they had been. The point I'm trying to make for you here is that in this country, we have a really, really long history of the press being able to go really hard in the paint against U.S. presidents because we have this commitment to free speech. But the corollary to that, and I think it's an unavoidable corollary, is that we have a long history of presidents sort of returning fire. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at no point has that process, it's sort of a natural cycle, has no point in that as that process ever led to the dissolution of the free press as an institution. You know, the Fourth Estate is still going strong today, just like it was back in Jefferson's time.
No, I know, but I mean, to me, it just feels like it's like an every other day, and like I think somebody counted the number of tweets where he says no collusion, fake news. You know, there's certain things that like are themes with him. You know, that he always is constantly, you know, saying or tweeting, and it's like he just, to me, that was his. You know, there's certain a list of things that are the signs of fascism, and that's like one of the top ones.
The signs of fascism.
Yes,
don't you think that's a little over the top?
Say it again. Don't
you think it's a little over the top to say that these are the signs of fascism?
No, I'm telling you. Like this guy has alarmed like a lot of people. There's a person putting out a book now that's been compiling like every single day the different like changes that have been happening in the country since he got in office, because he's so divisive and so vocal against the free press, and is like totally, basically teaming up with, strong men and whatnot. It's incredible. And then just trying to like make the Justice Department be Trump's Justice Department. And then he's coming out with, oh yeah, let's have a military parade. I mean, they do that in Russia. They do that in North Korea. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's just.
Do you think that it's fair? Do you think it would be fair to call Barack Obama a Marxist?
Oh my God! I mean, and that's a thing too. I think everybody thinks that Democrats or liberals are socialists. Like, ooh! And the funny thing is, socialism was in Russia back in the day, and all of a sudden now it's a dirty word for Democrats. You know what I mean? It's funny. Like, you guys are all like, yay, Russia now.
It's come full circle,
I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's really kooky, right? When people say that Democrats are socialists, that's kind of a nutty, crazy, kooky thing, right?
Well, I mean, I guess in comparison, I guess you could say, you know what I mean? But I'm telling you, I'll find the list of things that they're saying, of signs of, fascism. And I mean, seriously, like, people compare him to Hitler. I mean, it's
well, what
just,
about you though, Jill? Well, not people. What about you? Do you compare Trump to Hitler?
Yeah, kind of. I think if he, like I said, if there weren't checks and balances, I'd be scared. Like, to see what would happen. Like, I could see him, almost setting up internment camps. Like they had Japanese internment camps back in the day. You know what I mean? Things like it, but not for the Japanese. He would do it to, the Mexicans and the Muslims. Like, those are his people that he maligns. So I think if there weren't the checks, that he would just go all out. It would be scary.
What's scary to me is the sheer depth of how deeply you despise our president.
Is it really that obvious? Sorry.
Just try to see it from my shoes, okay? Here's what you're telling me. You're telling me in your mind is akin to Hitler, and if he had it in his power, he would round us up and put us in camps.
No, not everybody, but certain groups. He would either
he would round up certain groups and put them in camps. If it weren't for the checks and balances, we'd be living under a fascist dictatorship. I mean, Jill,
probably.
Are you hearing yourself?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Thank God for the checks and balances, and thank God for the free press. Because if
how are you any different from your old boyfriend who says, like, yeah, Obama's a Marxist, or whatever? I mean, this is really crazy stuff, Jill.
I know. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying.
He's a reality TV star. He's a real estate tycoon. He's a guy who grew up in Manhattan. He's a very nationalistic guy. He's a very pragmatic guy. I don't see him as being, honestly, particularly ideological. I think he's more pragmatic than ideological. And he's kind of an asshole, so he rubs a lot of people the wrong way. Jill, he isn't Hitler. You gotta stop with this stuff.
I'm not saying he's Hitler, but I'm saying that the things that the way that he is, how do you say, some of the things that he's doing are reminiscent of like a Mussolini or, one of these dudes, back in the day. That's what I'm saying. He's not going to start putting people in gas chambers, but
Jill, why do people dislike Hitler? What did Hitler do wrong?
Well, for one, Hitler was Jewish, for one, which is bizarre. And
Hitler was Jewish.
Yes.
That's why people don't.
He was. No. He was Jewish, but then he basically turned like his hatred towards Jews. And
what did he do? What did Hitler do that was so bad? Why do people dislike Hitler?
Are you serious right now? Are you serious? Or are you just pulling my chain? Like you don't know?
I'm asking a Socratic question.
Oh my! How can you not know why people that he's like the most evil person ever to walk the earth? Pretty much.
Exactly. Give me something.
He gassed millions of people.
Exactly.
Not just Jews.
Exactly.
Not just Jews either.
Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. He gassed millions of people. That's what he did. That's why people dislike Hitler. It's not because he criticized the press. It's not because...
but he started with that. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that Trump's going to be a full-blown version of Hitler.
He started with that, but you know what else? He was also like militant vegetarian. But I'm not going to say like, well, that's where genocides get started is from vegetarians.
What? Vegetarian? How can you be what? Oh, because you're a vegetarian, so you're going to start being a homicidal maniac? Okay.
Yeah, it sounds pretty crazy, doesn't it?
No.
Doesn't it sound a bit silly? Kind of as silly as saying, like, well, look, Hitler criticized the press. And you know who else criticizes the press? Donald Trump. So they're basically going down the same path.
I'm not saying no, but I'm saying there's certain actions that a leader takes that's on the road. Like if you can check off all the boxes and you can pretty much check off all but like a couple of them so far with Trump.
On the road to what?
I'll find the list. Find the list and I'll send it. No. Okay, take away Hitler. Let's say Mussolini. How about that? Like he's okay. He's not Hitler. God help us. But I could see he wants it to be the way Trump wants it to be. Trump is so used to like running the show. You know what I mean? He's got his family in the White House. I mean, that's insane right there. Okay, that he's got his freaking daughter and son-in-law. Like, isn't there nepotism laws? Then it's like the emoluments clause. Like, they're still benefiting off of the presidency. Like, so it's incredible.
That's why everybody hates Mussolini is because he was really nepotistic and he just hired his family members.
I'm not talking about Mussolini right now. I'm talking about Trump. I'm saying if you don't want me to compare him to Hitler because Hitler gassed a bunch of people, then I'll say, okay, I'll compare him to like a Mussolini dictator.
Right, so I'm trying to understand what the comparison is. Trump is like Mussolini because he hires his family members?
No, it's that he's doing stuff that they do in like banana republics and dictatorships and things like that. Saddam Hussein had his two sons, working with him too. You know what I mean? It's just bizarre. Like a lot of the stuff that he's doing is like totally like, who cares about the laws? He's like a lawless, person, like just doing whatever he wants, basically. And everybody, that's why.
Do you think that the New York Times is a credible news source?
Sometimes and sometimes not. Sometimes and sometimes not. There's some things that they put out right now. Lately, it's like kind of questionable.
Lately, it's questionable?
Yes.
But you listed them as one of the legacy institutions that Trump was attacking.
Yeah, initially. Like anytime anybody would come out with like a negative story about him, instead of just having some class and being above the fray, he has to like get in the dirt all the time and go on the attack and, you know, fake news or crooked this or, you know, Rocket Man that, or, you know what I mean? Like he has a nickname for everybody. And it sounds like he's a fifth grader on the playground.
Yeah, but in the case of the New York Times, I mean, that was well deserved, right? I mean, they deserved everything they got, didn't they?
No, there's some writers for the New York Times that are actually legit, and then other stuff that comes out now.
Do you know who the current publisher of the New York Times is?
I think they got bought by some. I'm not sure. No.
Yeah, but who's the guy who publishes the New York Times? Is named Pinch Sulzberger, and he's the son of the guy who was previously the publisher of the New York Times. So they are really just like Mussolini, because look what they're doing. They had a guy, he was running the newspaper, and then he hired his own son to replace him. And
yeah, that's okay, but that's not. Listen. You can't compare. That's apples to oranges, and they stopped. And what do you call it? They imposed nepotism laws after Kennedy because he hired his brother as the attorney general. So that wasn't it's not a good situation. I mean, Jared Kushner can't get a security clearance, neither can Ivanka. And now they're having to have a thing where, now Jared apparently got his limited security clearance now. Like he was on an interim one forever. And then finally they said, look, he's never going to get a permanent security clearance. So now they're saying that he's got limited viewing of classified material now. That's what John Kelly had to implement. So it's just these people are not. It's just a circus. It's every day is like chaos in that White House.
Well, I'm being a little bit, I've been a little bit facetious with you, and also I'll say, look, I am a little bit leery of the influence of Jared Kushner, just personally, but. Where I'm really coming from here is this, Jill. The common denominator of banana republics is not people hiring family members. That's not what makes a banana republic a place you wouldn't want to live in. The thing that people don't like about Mussolini is not that he, hired his family members. You can't set up these comparisons where you say
no. I'm not even saying the thing about Mussolini is because he had his family members at all. I was saying Mussolini because he was a dictator. That's it. The one that
Donald
I said
Trump, I mean, look, I would love for Donald Trump to be a dictator because I think if he were I think if Trump was a dictator, the country would look a lot more like, what I want it to look like.
Oh my God. Okay, Ted, now I might have to say, hold the line here. Wait a minute. Back up. Then if you want to be in a dictatorship, then go to Russia.
Well,
this is not America. America is a democracy. That's another thing. That I think Trump is the president of the wrong country.
Right. Look, I'm not saying that I want to be in the dictatorship. I'm saying the idea of Trump being a dictator to me does not sound that bad because he happens to be a guy that I like. But here's the point. He is not a dictator. If he were a dictator, he would be getting a lot more things done. If he were a dictator, the wall would already be built. All of the DACA kids would already be deported. And
what?
If he were a dictator and he could just exercise his will, he would, we'd be like, I think he probably would be somebody pretty similar to Duterte. I wouldn't be surprised if the people who are, selling opioids or whatever did just get, if he had his druthers, maybe they would get rounded up and shot. But he's not a dictator. And we don't live in a dictatorship.
I know, but listen to what I'm saying to you right now. If it wasn't for the fact that we are in a democracy and there are checks and balances, and trust me, they've been being tested. Like they're like holding on by for dear life because he is testing them. Like this person is a very big, just bulldozer personality, and he is totally testing the strength of the checks and balances of democracy. Like he's pushing it. Every which way that he can, he has been pushing it. Like, he doesn't care about the nepotism laws by putting in the family. He doesn't care about the emoluments clause because he's making money hand over fist, benefiting from the presidency, him and his family. Like, there's so many things that he's just like railroaded right past. And the thing is, the GOP in the House and the Senate, basically they've just rolled over and they've said, okay, whatever you want.
If your argument is, I don't like Trump because he's doing as much as he can to exercise power, given the system that he has, and then you say, well, look, if it weren't for the fact that he was the president of a democratic country, he would be a dictator. To me, that's no different from saying, like, well, look, if it weren't for the fact that the House of Saud were an autocratic royal family, they might just be normal politicians. Sure.
No.
If Trump was born into a different situation, a different time, a different place, and he were a dictator of a country, I'm sure he would be a very dictatorial dude.
Right.
But he's not. He's our president. He's the president.
Right. But he's not like any other American president ever in my lifetime. And I know, like I said, I've got some years on you. So I've never seen anything like it. People that are older than me say the same thing. They've never seen anything like this. He's an anomaly. Like, he is definitely like just whatever you know what I mean? He's pushing it as far as he can. And as long as he's got, the GOP in Congress and the House and Senate just going along with him, you know what I mean? It's like you know what I mean? That's why nothing's getting done, too.
So what really this is to you is this is a limitation of powers issue. You just don't want the presidency to be vested with as much power as you see Donald Trump grasping.
Maybe, because it's like, it's like the Republicans control everything. So it's like that's why there's nothing getting done. I mean, other than the tax thing, and I don't agree with that either. I don't agree with the tax thing at all. I don't agree with the healthcare stuff. I don't agree with kicking the DACA kids out. I don't. I don't agree with building the wall.
You must really hate FDR, right?
FDR?
Yeah.
Why do you say that I hate him?
Well, he massively expanded the power of the executive while he was president. He even tried, Congress stopped him, but he even tried to pack the Supreme Court with, I think he wanted like a 16-member Supreme Court or something. He tried to pack the Supreme Court with sympathetic justices. He created all kinds of, new administrations during the Great Depression.
Yeah, well, he also did a lot of stuff though too. He did the New Deal, and he pulled us out, of the Depression and whatnot. So I don't know. Maybe there was reasons for that. I'm not sure. I'm not an FDR expert, but I know he was a good, good president.
Okay, so then it isn't just about the power of the presidency. It's not just about the power of the executive. It's something else.
It's that I think that he's so used to, running the show, literally, like in his business and then on his TV show, that nobody challenges him. Nobody can tell him no. Nobody tells him the truth. Like, that's what everybody kept thinking. Okay, well, I know it's unusual for his kids to be in the White House, Ivanka and her husband, but maybe they can, tell him, some, like, moderate him a little bit, from his, like, bring him back from his worst instincts or whatever. And they're not doing anything either. Like, they're not, who knows what they're doing, So it's kind of a joke.
Not doing anything if nobody knows what they're doing?
Well, Jared is basically seeing all kinds of classified info more than anyone. They said that he requests it more than anyone. Okay. And he's, deeply in debt. Okay. Which is also a big thing to not, when you just fill out these SF-86 forms, they're like, who do you owe money to? And what, all kinds of stuff. Have you dealt with foreigners? And Have you whatever? And so he's revised his SF-86 form something like 4 or 5 times. He's vulnerable to blackmail, to being whatever, like, because he's in so much debt with that stupid building on 666 Fifth Avenue. So he owes a lot of money, and he's been, trying to, apparently there's a few countries that seem to feel like they've got some influence over him or wanted to get influence over him. They listed them earlier today. Israel was one of them. I think United Arab Emirates was another. China. Like, it's just they're all doing all kinds of, stuff. Like, whatever they can get away with, that's what they're doing. Like, Jared Kushner, their family has, like, real estate too. So they were, like, trying to offer F1 visas for the Chinese. His sister was over there, like, trying to sell, high-rise condos or something in exchange for visas for Chinese people to come over here. Like, how are they doing that? Really? Like, if they spent like $500,000 on a condo or something, they were going to give them an F1 visa. What the hell is that?
I can't comment on this. This is another one where you're going to have to send me the link, and I promise you, if you send me the link, I'll put it in the description. And I would say I can't really make any particular defense of the Kushner family. I didn't vote for Jared Kushner. I voted for Donald Trump.
Right. Okay. Well, neither did anybody else, right? Like, what the hell is he doing in there? I'm not happy about it.
You might be interested to hear that there are a lot of people on the far right, I guess, what you would think of as the far right, the sort of area of the political spectrum that I occupy, who suspect Jared and Ivanka of pushing Trump to the left and, being a bad influence because they push him further to the left.
So, God forbid. He would go more to the center. Oh, no.
Yeah, well,
what?
It's interesting. It's interesting how different perspectives can be. Jill, we have been
This has been a while,
for a
right?
long time.
Yeah,
and I've loved every minute of it. I really appreciate you coming on, but I think I think it's getting to the point where we should make some like closing statements. Do you think that's fair?
Sure. Excellent.
Well, let me ask you this first of all. Do you regret coming on?
No.
I'm glad to hear it. Did you have at least a modicum of fun hashing it out with me?
Yes, I think it was fine. Like, I think we have totally different views on things, but at least we were able to share them respectfully. So that's cool.
Yeah, well, also, I mean, I think not more than just sharing our views. I think that I kind of learned something today. I think I got a better insight into how the people who, maybe are not as Trump happy as I am, the people who voted for Hillary or whatever, I got a better insight into what it is that they're worried about and the way that they see the world. So I really appreciate that you,
Good. Thank you. I let you have a glimpse of what we're dealing with on the other side here of watching this whole thing.
I really think so. I really think so.
Okay. All right. So awesome. Hopefully your whoever was listening thought it was interesting too. And anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, the listenership has declined a little bit in the last, whatever 30 minutes of our conversation, but that's okay.
I know. We did go. How long have we been on for? Like 2 hours or something?
Yeah, we've been watching for a long time or talking for a long time.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll let you have the final word. How's that?
I will look for. Let me think. Okay, I'm supposed to send you a couple of links, so I'll try to find. Okay, the Jared Kushner stuff, right? I think was one of them. And then another one was, that they're paying more. It was stuff that I've seen on Twitter. When are you going back on Twitter? You said after Easter or something?
Yeah, so what I did was I gave up Twitter for Lent.
Okay.
And so the way
I was like, wait, what? You're off Twitter? Oh, no.
Yeah, Twitter is deprived of my golden content. I gave up Twitter for Lent. That works is until Easter. So when Catholics give something up for Lent, it means that they don't do that thing until from Ash Wednesday until Easter. And
wait a minute, that's like, okay, hold on. I'm trying to remember, when was Lent? That was like, so you're going to have to be off Twitter for like a month, I think.
It's actually specifically it's 40 days, the same amount of time that Christ was in the desert.
Okay. Wow.
Actually, well, there are a lot of things that happen for 40 days in the Bible. It's a very important duration of time. But there's an exception. There's a little special clause. On Sundays, you get to do the things that you gave up for Lent. Sundays during Lent, you get like a reprieve. So
really,
I can jump back on Twitter on Sunday and get
because some of the things that I'm going to send you will probably be easier just to like I'll just DM them to you or something on there.
Yeah, that's fine, and I'll catch those on Sunday, and I will include every story. I'll include a link in the description of the video, so the people listening to this conversation can go and check it out for themselves. And the other thing I'll probably do is like a super cut of this where I maybe cut it down to like a few specific issues.
Like a little bit more palatable. Okay.
Yeah, and I condense this like big long 12-hour show down to like 40 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, we did we did jump around quite a bit, but we kind of kept it like guns, immigration, right? We had certain themes. So I think and just the fact that Trump's horrible, but anyways, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just to insult your president.
Guns, immigration, how horrible Donald Trump is. That's good. That's a good list. You rounded it out.
Awesome. Okay. Well, listen, and if you think of any other articles or whatever that I don't include, then just let me know, like if you want any other things that if you think of them later or that we brought up. Okay.
All right, I have one more question for you, actually, before we go off the air. Has this conversation softened your heart at all towards Trump supporters?
Oh boy. I don't. Okay, maybe a little bit, and the reason why is because I'm not sure. Like, well, okay. Maybe because I think you don't know, like you're not watching like I am of what's going on, so you don't know like the whole thing. But your opinion, see, I'd be interested to see if your opinion would change a little bit. Like if I send you some links or whatever, I'll try to send you some other stuff about the stuff about the what do you call it, special counsel, Mueller investigation. I'd be interested to see if your opinion would change a little bit.
I will maybe. How about let's do this? Maybe we'll have you back on, in a month or something, and we'll do another conversation and see if perspectives have changed or adjusted, and maybe we'll have it won't just be just me and you next time. Maybe we can have like another guest or something, and that way people won't have to just rely on us keeping things interesting. What do you think about that?
Sure, no problem.
All right.
That'd be cool.
Thank you so much, Jill, for coming on. Any other last words before we go off the air?
Thank you. And it was interesting. And hopefully everybody got something out of it too. And hopefully I was okay to talk to as well. So
you were awesome. Even for a lefty.
Even for a lefty. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Cheers.
Okay. Take care. Have a good night. Okay.
Yep.
How do you disconnect too? Or you disconnect? No.
I do, but I thought you just clicked the live thing, but I think that doesn't do it.
Oh.
people are not going to get to hear me figure out how to
I see it. Okay, I got it.